Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Asheville City Council meeting. If you could just take a moment to silence your cell phones. If you have an item on the agenda that you wanted to sign up to speak on, please make your way out into the hall, and you can do that at any time. If you've already done it, good job. It'll be on our computers. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have this really well orchestrated. Okay, everybody, tonight is a really, really special night, and it's a really sad night.
Oh, y'all are too y'all are too much.
So I know most of you are here for the Haw Creek item, but you're also going to be here to celebrate and honor the last meeting of our city manager, Debra Campbell. This is her last meeting. She is ending her 7 years with us and retiring. And in honor of this momentous occasion, we have some prizes for you. Debra, come on down here, come on. Everybody, this is Debra's wife, Yolanda. Surprise, Debra. Okay. Debra's no fun. She didn't want any parties. So we have some things tonight to honor you. We can't say thank you enough. Okay. All right, here we go. Whereas on December 3rd, 2018, City Council appointed Debra D. Campbell as the city manager of the city of Asheville. And whereas prior to her position with the city of Asheville, Debra served as assistant city manager with the city of Charlotte, as well as Charlotte's planning director. And whereas Debra has demonstrated through her many years of experience great passion for and dedication to public service and great strength as an effective and visionary leader. And whereas during Debra's tenure, spanning more than 40 years in public service, she has addressed issues and challenges related to public safety and trust, social and economic disparity, and environmental stewardship. And whereas Debra led the city through two major events, the COVID-19 pandemic and Tropical Storm Helene, and whereas Debra has served the community with distinction, serving in numerous public appointments and offices, consistently demonstrating her constant drive to build a community that better serves all of our residents. And whereas Debra has served the city of Asheville through her appointments to several commissions and organizations, including the American Planning Association, the Urban Land Institute, the National Forum for Black Public Administrators, the International City-County Management Association, the Asheville Area Chamber of Commerce, the Economic Development Coalition of Asheville and Buncombe County, and the Asheville-Buncombe County Continuum of Care, the United Way of Asheville, and Buncombe County Board of Directors. And whereas in 2007, Debra was named Public Official of the Year by Governing Magazine. And whereas throughout her career, she has earned the respect of civic leaders and the admiration and affection of countless residents. And whereas on behalf of the entire City Council, we express our sincere appreciation for Debra for her loyalty and dedicated service to the city of Asheville since 2018, and wish her much happiness as she begins this exciting new chapter in her life. Now therefore, Esther E. Manheimer, Mayor, and the members of the Asheville City Council do hereby proclaim Tuesday, November 18th, 2025 as Debra D. Campbell Day. in the city of Asheville and urge all citizens and employees to join me and the city council in congratulating Debra on an outstanding career with the city of Asheville and expressing our sincere appreciation to her for her unwavering dedication and service to the city of Asheville. We wish her many years of happiness and good health. And in her honor, may you all prepare a Google slide deck that begins and ends with key takeaways. So I know this was really special, but now we have something even more special.
Dun, 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 dun.
Hi, Deborah. I am so pleased to be here and represent Governor Josh Stein to recognize a true public servant. Throughout his time in elected office, Governor Stein has recognized the dedication and the intellect that it takes to lead a local government. And there has never been a time where this has been more on display than in this last year and a half, leading through the challenges of a natural disaster. And Debra, let me just say, you have rounded out an amazing career with such grace, intellect, dedication, and grit, getting us through all of that. And we're still getting through it. Those of us gathered here today know all your skills and your devotion so well, and those of us in the community are very grateful, because I'm part of that community too, that you've been at the helm in these challenging times. So, it is one of the governor's great delights to bestow on public servants of the highest caliber the highest recognition, the longleaf pine. And I know for a fact that this one has layers of significance for him. So on behalf of Governor Josh Stein, thank you for your tremendous leadership. It is an honor to recognize the decades of public service that you have given to these two critical, sweet, interesting communities in North Carolina. And you've done it so well. So with that, I present you the Order of the Longleaf Pine. Congratulations.
Oh, we're not done. So, Ms. Campbell, you know, I'm from Ohio. I had no idea what the Order of the Longleaf Pine was. And, you know, we're Buckeyes, but somewhere, somehow, somebody told me about this. And I went and looked it up, and I read the definition of what it was. And it said, you know, exemplary service to the community. And you came to my mind right away when I read that. And it's not just to the community, it's to everybody in the community. And so I thought, I need to see what we can do with this. But I only have known you for a few years, and the people that I work with have only known you, you know, since you've been here. But Cheryl, on the other hand, so I immediately called Cheryl, and I said, hey, I need some help. Help me with Charlotte. And we put all this together, and we were able to submit it. And with the mayor's help and working it through with Holly and everything else, I am so happy that you have received this tonight. So we all have gained from your mentorship and leadership. Thank you.
Do you want to say a few words?
Oh, Debra.
Can you believe we kept that a secret? pretty good surprise.
You did.
Before we move on to the consent agenda, and after that celebratory and bittersweet, sort of sad moment, I would like to take this opportunity to read a joint statement from this city council, as well as the Buncombe County Commission. This is something we issued earlier today to address the fear and concern in our community over the possibility of seeing ICE or Border Patrol enter our community. And I'm going to read the statement that we have provided jointly. Our community's strength comes from our diversity, and we are unwavering in our commitment to ensuring Asheville and Buncombe County remain safe and welcoming places where everyone can grow and thrive. All of our residents deserve to feel secure while going about their daily lives. Expected U.S. Customs and Border Patrol protection operations are causing unnecessary fear in our community. We've seen what happened in other cities, people without criminal records detained, violent confrontations erupting. We don't want that here. Our community is still recovering from Hurricane Helene. We do not need additional stress and fear. We stand with all residents who simply want to go about their lives and contribute to our community. We are committed to following the law and protecting the rights and dignity of everyone who calls Asheville and Buncombe County home. Know your rights. Organizations including Pisgah Legal Services stand ready to assist individuals seeking legal guidance on immigration matters. If you need police, call 911. The Asheville Police Department and Buncombe County Sheriff's Office do not participate in ICE or CBP operations and are not involved in federal immigration enforcement activities. We know that many people want to speak out and make their voices heard. That is your right. We ask that, as a community, we do so peacefully. In closing, we call on our community to stand together, no matter our political beliefs. We are united in support of hardworking and law-abiding families who call this place home. Thank you. And council, before we move on to the consent agenda, if anybody else would like to say anything, please.
If it's okay, I will share that shortly before this meeting, I heard from representatives of the Latino community in conjunction with faith leaders, and they requested that we move forward with the statement and take a pause and slow down to consider a little bit more the resolution. Perhaps it's one that we can pick up at another date, but at this time, they had concerns about moving in a way that potentially could cause more risk than originally anticipated. Just wanted to share that with the community.
Thank you.
As someone who has presented the resolution to my colleagues this weekend, thank you for your consideration. I continue to work in alignment with both impacted communities and also with state representatives and people across the country who have experienced federal government overreach and remain ready to support council on meaningful action, be that Fourth Amendment workplace like Carborough has done, or a ordinance or a resolution that backs our staff, whether it's Parks and Rec, sanitation, or the police department, with the full faith and confidence of the city regarding our values. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we move on to the consent agenda, folks, item D regarding the relocation of the West Asheville Police Station is going to not be considered on our agenda tonight, and will go to the Public Safety Committee chaired by Councilman Hess on Thursday. And so we will see that item at a later date. Also, I have a request to remove item R to be considered for a separate vote. So at this time, council, if I could have a motion to approve the consent agenda without item R, I'm sorry.
So moved.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask for a clarifying point regarding not item D or R?
Yes, please. Oh, yes, absolutely.
Second. I'm sorry, I did not. So I have a second to the motion to approve this consent agenda without items D or R.
And for a specific additional note, the East West Asheville Neighborhood Association did present some questions, and I think speaking also with the Heart of West Asheville Business Coalition, business owners, as I imagine neighborhoods on the corridor as well, have more curiosity about what public safety looks like and would like to be engaged before we make a decision on the police station on Haywood Road.
That's what you're speaking to, that item?
Correct.
Okay,
Item
thank
D.
you. Okay, so we have a motion to approve the consent agenda without item D and without item R. And we have a few people signed up to speak under this. So folks, when you speak tonight, you'll have up to 3 minutes. Watch the lights on the lectern. Green means go, orange means you're getting close to stop, and red means stop. And the first person signed up to speak is David Moritz.
The resolution to remove Jared Wheatley from the Planning and Zoning Commission is not only unjustified, it is a stain on our city's commitment to fairness, diversity, and Indigenous representation. This action is, first, an attempt to remove a volunteer who has consistently and appropriately held staff accountable. Second, it relies on mischaracterizations rather than evidence. And third, it targets the only Indigenous member serving on any of our boards or commissions. I want to begin by reminding us of our own land acknowledgement, which admits a history of coercion, broken treaties, and forced removal. If those words mean anything, then they must guide your actions, not just your ceremonies. Staff provided 9 video clips as justification for removal. They even admit in writing that these clips may be difficult to interpret, but here's what the clips actually show. May 7th, Jared raises concern that buffer requirements may reinforce economic segregation. That is a legitimate planning issue. April 4th, he says Springside is not really a neighborhood. December 4th, he references the indigenous name for the river, Longman, and questions why public comment is being rushed. August 7th, he challenges staff delays on long-promised zoning reforms and unmet commitment from the last bond. Out of 9 clips, not a single one reflects inappropriate behavior. This is a commissioner doing his job and standing up for the public. Your own memo states, quote, conflict and disagreements are inherent in local government. We recognize diverse communication styles. If that is true, nothing in these clips justifies reprimand, let alone removal. The memo mentions a board resignation and insinuates Jared was responsible without a single piece of documentation. This refers to KL, who resigned because of pressure from Haw Creek residents, not because of Jared. Citizens criticized her for condescending behavior. I experienced it firsthand when she dismissed my public comment with, quote, thank you, David, no last name, for your comment unrelated to the UDO. KL resigned because of community pressure, not because of Jared. The memo also notes that a developer didn't like Jared attending a Board of Adjustment hearing. What it fails to mention is that Jared was invited to speak on behalf of a legacy black neighborhood, opposing a zoning change that they did not want, and in contravention to City Council's own zoning signage that had been done a week before. Let's be honest, staff is recommending this removal because Jared asks hard questions and refuses to rubber stamp staff preferences. And yes, because he brings an indigenous perspective that has long been ignored in this city. The memo tries to demonize Jared to justify his removal, the same pattern used historically to justify the removal of the Cherokee from this very land. That may be uncomfortable to hear, but history does not repeat exactly. It rhymes, and the rhyme is unmistakable.
Thank you. James Meter, you're signed up to speak under item D. Did you still want to speak? Yeah, it is.
Just to echo Kim, West Asheville Business Association had some questions, so thank you.
We actually, we flagged that. Thank you, though, for being here tonight. Quadir Wright is the next person signed up to speak.
Good evening. My name is Quadir Wright, and I'm here to speak about Jared Wheatley and why he should remain on the Planning and Zoning Commission. At 19, I'm still learning who I am, who I want to become, and how I want to contribute to my community. Along that journey, one of the most important people I've met is Jared Wheatley. I I've known Jared for about 2 years now, but in that time he has influenced my life in ways I never expected. Jared is an outstanding man, someone whose character speaks louder than any title or position ever could. He is a great role model, not just for me, but for our entire community. He carries himself with honesty, humility, and a genuine commitment to helping others. When Jared talks, he speaks with intention. When he listens with care. And when he works with a dedication that inspires everyone around him. In the 2 years I've known him, Jared has taught me a lot about life lessons, about responsibility, respect, and how to navigate challenges with integrity. He's also opened my eyes to the importance of culture, understanding where we come from, honoring our roots, and recognizing how culture shapes the decisions we make for our future. These aren't things you learn from the textbook. These are things you learn from someone whose values live through every day. Jared has also taken the time to teach me about construction and real estate, fields he knows deeply and works with passion and purpose. He didn't have to do that, but that's the kind of person he is. When he sees potential in someone, he reaches out, he teaches, lifts them up, and shows you what opportunity looks like. And then he helps you walk towards it. One of the moments that meant the most to me was when Jared became the first person to believe in my capital management company. At 19, starting a business is a big step, especially as a young black man. And not everyone will take you seriously, but Jared did. He believed in me enough to invest in what I was building as my first investor. And someone who didn't just invest money, but invested trust, confidence, and encouragement. That belief pushed me forward in ways I'll always be grateful for. These qualities, his honesty, work ethic, cultural awareness, and his mentorship, and his commitment to doing what is right are exactly why Jared should continue remaining on the Planning and Zoning Commission. He understands the importance of thoughtful development, the value of cultural respect, and the need to make decisions that benefit the community as a whole. He brings fairness, integrity, and heart to every conversation he enters, and those are qualities we need in leadership. So tonight, I'm not just speaking as a young man who has been mentored by Jared, but I'm speaking as someone who has seen firsthand the kind of impact he has on people and on this community. Jared Wheatley is a rare kind of leader, one who leads by example, who lifts others up, and who stays committed to what truly matters. For all these reasons, I fully believe Jared should remain on the Planning and Zoning Commission. Thank you. And the last thing I have to say is, if you're voting against him, you should look in the mirror and question yourself if you're a morally right person. Thank you.
And then the last person signed up under consent, Maggie, that's gonna buzz, is Jared Wheatley.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and all of Council. I'd just like to say that it's with great gratitude and appreciation that I've served the city for the last 2 years on the Planning and Zoning Commission. As a veteran of the United States Air Force, I take service to my community and to institutions within the city and the country very seriously. On a more historic note and personal note as well, this council is the first council to appoint an enrolled member of the Cherokee Nation to the Planning and Zoning Commission. And as of this evening, I still remain the only enrolled tribal member on any board or commission. And so that representation matters a lot because the region story can't really be told without an Indigenous perspective and with those perspectives who have maintained the relationship in this community and on this land since time immemorial. So stepping back from that a little bit into the specifics, during my term on Planning and Zoning Commission, we have pursued many firsts. One of the firsts is that our Planning and Zoning Commission is the first to initiate and lead UDO reform. That came to you all through removing parking minimums as well as increasing project level thresholds along commercial corridors. We became the first to appoint a liaison to the Legacy Neighborhood Coalition and help bridge those gaps of inequity into different parts of our community. We also became the first to actually adopt, of any board and commission, to adopt a land acknowledgement that's recognized prior to our meetings. So all of that is deep and meaningful work. That's what the commission's for. It is also difficult work. On a personal note, I'm super proud and happy to have authored the initial drafts for the zoning reform that was supported by planning and urban design staff and also put into our UDO through this council. So I think that work kind of speaks for itself. We do face real challenges going forward. We have deep-rooted history, really starting in the 1920s, where our city was established as a luxury community. And to overcome that embedded lens of focusing on those folks who have, we're going to have to ensure that we have difficult, diverse conversations to maintain the opportunity to embed the lived experience of marginalized communities in forthcoming zoning modifications. So thank you so much. I appreciate your time and the opportunity to serve.
Thank you. We don't have any other folks signed up to speak under consent. Council, we have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda without item D and item R. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, do I have a motion to, I was just going to read it. Do we have a motion to approve the resolution removing Jared Wheatley from the Asheville Planning and Zoning Commission?
So moved. Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. We've taken a comment. Any other further comments, council? All right, all those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, please raise your hand. Okay, thank you. Okay, that concludes the consent agenda, which was really long. And now we're going to move under presentations and reports. We have one item under the manager's report, the American Rescue Plan Act update. There's a throwback, isn't there?
The last disaster.
Okay. Sorry, we've already moved on to our next disaster. So, yeah. But it's always nice to have Kim back here to talk to us about this.
And-
Mostly for the accent and secondarily for the content.
And, right. Kim, before you start, Mayor, we actually have two items.
Okay.
Apologize. And I know it's taken up enough time. We've got a really dense agenda. So I will just turn it over to Kim.
Good evening, Mayor.
Kim, get right there in front of that mic there.
I have to speak
yeah.
up as well.
There you go.
And city management. So this is the fourth year into the American Rescue Plan Act grant. I was actually due to present an update in the first October meeting after the hurricane, and obviously that didn't happen. So I looked back on that report, and much of the beginning is the same. And of course, we have the key takeaways. So
I hope we get to keep that even after you're gone.
I hope so.
I use it all the
go
time.
anywhere.
Yeah.
I use it all the time now.
So to start off with, for those people who weren't on the city council at the time, most of you were, you know that the process that we went through for evaluation and scoring was very robust, and it allowed us to get some really detailed information about how to select programs to go forward. There was 32 projects funded for the total of the 26.3 million that we were awarded. 18 quarterly reports have gone to the Treasury, and 6 remain. I'll come back to the quarterly reports to the Treasury when I get a bit further into the report. We had a deadline of the 31st of December 2024 to have all the funds obligated. If they were not obligated at that point, then we had to go through a process of returning the funds, but we had 100% of the funds obligated by the deadline. So up to date, there is 94% of the funds have been utilised. The projects are all ongoing. Many of them will go past the 2026 deadline for the funds to be spent, but the actual fiscal responsibilities, we are bang up to target on the rate that we are spending the money, and successful as far as the way the money has been utilised. It has all been according to the guidelines and the rules from the Treasury. Helene changed a lot of things for all of us, but also as far as the ARPA funds. First of all, we were allowed by the Treasury to pivot the funds to use for the same projects, but to help with Helene recovery. And that flexibility just allowed us in a huge way to be able to pivot and react to the next kind of emerging emergency. And the thing that I'm most proud of, I think, of through this whole process is that the procedures and approach that we've used have been different. We've worked in partnerships with those not-for-profits that we picked out of necessity, because we in the city did not have the resources or the capacity or the capability to spend those funds in the community in the way that it needed to be spending. We just didn't have that expertise in-house. So the people that we picked to partner with really actually stepped forward and helped us get that money out into the community in the right way. So I'm just going to briefly go through the timeline. I think most of you, certainly here, know this timeline. But yeah, so we started the process back in 2021. We issued an RFP for the funds in September. I actually started in October, so came into the middle of that process as the RFP applications came in. And then the staff evaluated 82 applications, of which we funded the 32 projects. There was a lot, I don't know if you remember, but there was a lot of interim final rules and then final rules, and so every week it seemed that those rules changed as to how we could use the funds. Part of that was actually incredible because of all the municipalities that got the funds, the $320 billion that went out in ARPA recovery from the Treasury, pushed back against the rules that were issued at the time to say, if you want us to get this money into the community for recovery, you need to give us some flexibility as to how we can use that. And the Treasury, in fairness to them, did actually adjust and adapt. So hence the rule changes often, but it did help a lot to get those funds out into the community. The initial funds were awarded on May the 10th, 2022. Then the process kind of went, so we had to start doing kickoff meetings and get the contract sorted, which was also a heavy lift. And then from then on to the present, we've had monthly reports from all the sub-recipients, not only on the fiscal aspects of these projects, but also the reporting on how successful they were being, if they were achieving their targets, what were the barriers, and what were the things that were working. We had some funds that we had to get allocated before the December 2024 deadline, so the council also made a couple more awards at that point to go through. And then all the funds, as I said, had to be obligated by December 2024. Oh, sorry, let's go back. Sorry, pressed the button too many times. There we go. So from now until December 2026, all the funds have to be spent down by then. The relationships in the community, gathering of data, and all the ongoing work that we're doing is carrying on through that time. And the final report to the Treasury is April 2027. As I said, there was going to be a midpoint ARPA update to the council just after the hurricane, and of course that didn't happen. But the hurricane, which I'll come on to, actually provided us with a really unique opportunity. We had a real-time example of resilience in the community that we could actually study and account for and document. And that was, I mean, God forbid we have another disaster of that type, but it certainly gave us a unique opportunity to actually get to study how resilience in the community was actually functioning and what the organisation in the community had already achieved, and whether the funds that we had committed to from the COVID disaster to whether or not that the funds that we had invested had actually contributed to helping the community when we were hit with another unexpected and hugely damaging disaster. So this is just the funds that were allocated and the amount that has been spent so far. This is on our portal, so on our dashboard on the city's website, so all the information about the projects and the funds and what results they've been achieving so far. So this is just another set. So So that's all the funds that were allocated for the $26 million that we got.
Remember how big that was?
There was also some additional funds that were allocated, matching funds from Dogwood, to two of the projects around housing and homelessness. So Habitat for Humanity and ABCCM got further awards of money to help with them their project. And then also the city manages $3.6 million of Buncombe County's funds that went to the emergency shelter funds through HIAC originally and then the COC. We continue to manage those funds because in the first instance, we had an agreement with Buncombe County. The city and Buncombe County funded the emergency shelter beds together. And then when it came up to the obligation deadlines for Buncombe County for their funds, they allocated a further $3.6 million, but wanted the city to carry on managing it because we had been successful in managing the program so far. So, this, I mean, as far as the progress review is concerned, we met all our requirements from the Treasury, and 94% of the funds have been paid out, which, as I said, is bang on the kind of schedule and the rate that we should be going. All the projects are achieving, mostly exceeding their targets, and this is something I want to talk about in a minute. And 100% of the sub-recipients are committed and engaged in the process. Their partnership in working through this process has been second to none, and I think we should thank all the partners that we have for getting these funds out in the way that benefited us and the community. We have been doing a collaborative grant management process, and I think it's been fairly quiet as far as any issues or anything as far as ARPA. I'm kind of proud that things haven't come back to you.
Quiet is good.
Yeah. So I think it's been very successful. And I think in the partnerships, I think we've achieved a much smoother ride than we would expect in this kind of massive grant process. And then also, we've approached this whole thing, when I say we, I, it's a team of one.
The royal we.
Not in the first place. There was a whole team to start off with. But we have done the results-based accountability work. So we have done that. We have done how much did you do, which is a fairly standard process in grant things. How much did you do? Secondly, we kind of look at how well did you do it. So are people achieving the targets that they set out to achieve, and is it the things that we wanted? But one of the things we don't really look at, and we have done with ARPA, and is ongoing, is who is better off because of it? What is the impact of that work? And what is the impact of the money that you have invested into the community? And I think a lot of the time with grants, especially because they tend to be shorter periods of time, like a year or whatever, that we don't look extensively at the impact and what impact it's had on the community. This was different because it was a multi-year grant, number one, and number two, that we did this partnership, and so we have been able to explore the impacts much more significantly than we normally do in grants. So Helene, as I said, was like, and it has been ever since, it's like drinking from a fire hose for information that is coming to us and the stuff that we learn about tragedy, trauma, and disasters in the community, and how well prepared our community was geared up to deal with this, for a completely unexpected event as it was. And I think we've worked extensively almost from the beginning, and I'm including Eric Jackson in this, who was the previous performance manager for the city. We contracted him back because he did so much work on the ARPA program in the first place, but also with the amount of information that we had to handle, I couldn't cope with the volume on my own. So we got Eric in as a contractor to help with the process of looking at the impact. And after Helene, we kind of almost started again, because the information that we had, as I said, in this real-time situation that we've never had before, that we could actually see things happening, then we have got mounds and mounds, hours and hours of data that we are trying to put into some kind of coherent format so that we can report back. But from those conversations, 5 key insights came about, is that the communities are as critical as the programs. So the communities and how they all interact and how they relate is as important as the programs they run, in fact more important a lot of the time. A lot of the time with this kind of grant, we look for innovation and impact and look for new things that are happening in the community when a lot of the maintenance and the operations that are already happening in the community are where some focus needs to be. So yes, innovation and everything is great, but we found with Helene that those community organizations that were well connected not only to their communities but also to other providers around actually fared better in the hurricane than those that didn't. And context is as important as effort. We found quite a lot of times where in situations where there is numbers that are required, like, so for in the homelessness situation, number of shelter beds, how many shelter beds have we got, how many people can we get off the streets in the homelessness world. But we found that a lot of when we were delving deeper into the impact, that the people that were running the programs actually had context that we didn't know about before, and that's provided us with a whole set of data that we didn't have. I think one of the main things that we learn is that agility and learning beats precise planning. People apply for these grants, the year before things have happened, and then, we've got 5 years to run. And one of the things the Treasury gave us was this incredible ability to just flex and pivot. And I think that has been one of the key learning things, is to actually be agile enough and flexible enough to say with our partners what's working, what isn't working, why isn't it working, how can we change. And we had the flexibility with the Treasury that we were able to do that. As long as it was under the auspices of the project that we were funding, we could move the funds, and especially after Helene, there was a lot of changes that we needed to do. And then the second most important thing, I think, was that the flows make funding go further. So we need to understand how things flow in the community, and I think you can only get that if you're closely connected to the community that you're working in. I'm very lucky because I'm the person that's working in this, so I get to be in the community all the time. I think I see quite a lot of you at events and community dinners and, whatever there is. I spend, 95% of my time in the community, in partnership and learning from the community and understanding what happens. And I think we need to get better at funding the flow of money rather than individual community groups. I know we've got the CDBGDR funds, and that, it's 10 times the amount of ARPA, and ARPA was the original, was the biggest single funding that we had at the city. But I think we need to look at the flows of where the money goes rather than getting people to do RFPs for individual organizations. But that's my opinion and the things that we've learned from this. So the next steps are to continue to manage the compliance and reporting to the Treasury, because that's a necessary evil, but it has to be done. But I also say that with the portal with the Treasury, that I have to do once a quarter to the Treasury. We get reports from every single project monthly from our projects. I am the conduit to the Treasury to get it into the Treasury portal, so I've taken all of that away from our partners, because that's a skill and a knowledge that they don't have, and you don't expect them to have. They don't have the capacity and resources for that. And it has been comparatively easy, apart from the software never works. You have to get to this point, I won't bore you too much, where you have to get 3 green ticks for every project. And getting 3 green ticks takes me about 3 weeks of every month that I have to report to get that right, because it's crazy, but anyway. But I think managing the relationships and the collaboration, but the key thing now is to analyze, quantify, and catalog all of this data, and there is still a mass. So Eric and I are working our way through it, because we have a draft deadline of a report to the Treasury for June next year, June 2026, and I will probably be in front of the council again before December 2026, because we have the final report. But we want all of that data, including the impact data, to come to you so that you can see how much your funding benefited the community in a way that we really needed. And we have those impact results, but we've got to somehow quantify it and put it in something that we can publish and share to you. But I think the main thing is that we need to encourage an evidence-based shift to a resilient ecosystem approach rather than individual organisation funding, so support the ecosystem of the community. So I think going back to the key takeaways, that's the general report, but I think it's been a huge success, and I think your contributions to the community in this instance have worked and been hugely successful. Thank you. Any questions?
I have a couple. Thank you for being here and for giving this report. The first question I had is regarding flow. You mentioned from this experience, one of the things was we could focus on flow instead of just these direct RFPs and having that process. But I don't know if I really understand that part. So could you maybe either give an example or talk about what it could look like to have a flow versus RFP? Because I think we run into this a lot.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think I can give you an example that's very real in the hurricane situation. Compass Point Village used to pay from another grant Equal Plates, a food security provider. They used to pay for 2 meals a day to go to Compass Point Village. Their grant ran out. They still had a need. So they went back to Equal Plates. Equal Plates asked me if, under the funding from ARPA, which we'd given them, whether they could pay the farmers for food to provide these meals. So we moved the ARPA money to go to the farmers at that point. Then the hurricane happened, and then what happened was the farmers had surplus food. So before we knew the situation with the restaurants and the power and things like that, so the farmers had surplus food, so they gave the food free. They gave the food free to Equal Plates, so that we then used the ARPA money to pay for kitchen space, because they had needed more kitchen space to produce all the food from the surplus. So ARPA paid for the kitchen space, and they were still able to provide the meals for Compass Point Village. Then the farmers realized that the restaurants weren't going to have any food for a while in the circumstances. So then ARPA went back to paying the farmers. So we have a whole cycle and flow of money going into the system where it needs to go. And I think we need to be better at being able to say this part of the system. So homelessness and food security as an example, they collaborate a lot to provide different things. So rather than providing funds for the individual sections, to actually say that community needs funds, and then you decide through something like the COC. The COC is a classic example of how it's a collaboration, and those funds can go to one place and then be allocated accordingly as needed.
That was so helpful. What I'm hearing, and help me make sure I got this right, set the target of outcome, not stuck in the details, because then you have more agility and flexibility to get to the outcome.
Yes.
But then how do you make sure you reach the outcome if you don't have the details to determine the data?
And I think that that's one of the things we need to learn, because we focus so much on how much and how well. We don't focus on the impact. So I think we need more data to provide that information. But certainly with the information that we have, all of the projects that we have funded through ARPA all intermingle in a way that is just fascinating. But understanding that and getting the data so that we can dictate where the funds come from. I mean, ecosystem resilience science is actually a really fascinating way, and I think it's been explored in the past, but I think we need to kind of keep focusing on it. And the ability to look at the impacts with the ARPA funds has actually provided us with data that we will get to you. We just need to, we're working on trying to find ways of quantifying that data that will make decision-making for funders easier around the ecosystem.
Wow. You may have unlocked a huge portal. I hope this is true, because I hear something similar in our strategic partnership funds, in our neighborhood grants, is like we asked the community to focus so much on the points of the details that we didn't allow the flexibility, and then we didn't get the outcomes.
Yeah.
Okay, that's my first curiosity. Thank you for illuminating. The second one, I just wanted to point out for our community. Because the ARPA funding process required us to have these applications, we got more applications and demand than we had funding for. And that's not the first time that's happened. But because of that, we saw a lot of amazing creative solutions that we didn't have the money for. but it doesn't mean we don't have the need. So I wanted to give one example. The Reimagining Transit Safety Program, when we asked about what I think you named it as impact and feasibility, like could you actually do it and would it do great for our community? It tied for second place. And so I pulled up the RFP, or request for proposal, from our community partners that said this is what transportation safety could look like at the transit system. To create a safer and less stressful environment for riders and drivers of the buses and the community as a whole. To be a gateway for city and county services to transit riders as needed. To provide an example of the city's commitment to improving the everyday lives of community members. To address and decrease conflicts that arise and or illegal actions on the transit platform and on buses. To increase customer service and ease of understanding for the transit system. It goes on, and I'm like, yes, this is a really powerful pilot. It was a 2-year pilot. We still need these things. And so I didn't want that to get lost, and that's why I'm bringing it back up to the public record, because we have this moment to discuss it, is we actually need to do more of this good work, and we have the partners ready. We don't yet have the funding, and that's always the problem. So
And
just wanted to elevate.
And I think,
And I
that's
want
a
to
very real
remind you,
challenge.
Kim, we've got another
Okay.
item, but go ahead in terms of your
Okay,
response.
let me just quickly answer that, and then, but I'm happy to take it offline afterwards, because there is actually a paper that Eric and I have written about ecosystem renewal. I think Council Member Allman, you've seen some of it and contributed to some of it.
Gone back and forth a
So,
little
you
bit.
know, we are actively pursuing this. So I think, again, ecosystem resilience and the transit system is part of that. I think we could do better at, kind of addressing this. But, in the interest of time, maybe I could take it offline with you and talk through the resilient ecosystems document that we've put, because we're trying to address those issues in the community, because there's a lot of things needed and we need to fund differently, I feel.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you, Kim, we appreciate it.
Thank you.
The next item is an update that'll be given by Jamie Matthews on the upcoming public engagement activity related to Riverfront Revitalization Project.
Yes,
Thank you,
thank you,
Jamie.
Deborah. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Jamie Matthews. I'm the assistant to the city manager and serving as deputy recovery coordinator. I'm here tonight to give an exciting update on the engagement that's coming up for our Riverfront Revitalization projects. So forever and always, we'll start with key takeaways. Public input and collaboration is essential for the success of these projects. An engagement effort will take place starting late this year and early into next year, with multiple opportunities for input. The project design will be informed by your council vision, recovery priorities, community input, and our previously adopted plans. Prior to moving through the design phase, this first round of community engagement is focused on listening and learning from our community. And all the engagement information will be posted on our city's website and shared through our communications channels. So the engagement is focusing on riverfront recovery projects, our Azalea Parks and Infrastructure recovery, and French Broad Riverfront Parks recovery. Current status of these projects, they're in design, and site and inventory analysis is in progress. So an overall engagement timeline, design phase kicked off in August, September. First round of engagement is going to start late this year. We'll report back on that engagement in early 2026. That move into a second round of public engagement based on that feedback and into initial concept designs, which will all inform the final development of designs in late 2026, early 27. So this upcoming engagement effort will include an open house at Asheville Middle on December 10th, and all this information is going to be announced this week, and again, will be posted. It'll include pop-up engagement in neighborhoods, at community events, direct outreach to partner organizations and stakeholders, an online survey, and some focused conversation facilitated meetings. So following that initial engagement, the design teams will create a summary report that we will bring back to you all. We'll have touch points in early 2026 with our recovery boards, And then the second engagement will start again in the spring of 2026, and that's when we'll be moving into those initial concept designs. So again, back to key takeaways. Just again, that the engagement of our community is essential for this project, for these projects, and all the information will be available, and we'll be sharing it with you all as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Mayor and Council, that concludes our manager's report for today. For the last
Yeah.
time. In fact. Thank you.
Okay.
Key takeaways, we're gonna miss you.
Madam Mayor, members of council, before I begin, I need you all to know how mortified I am that I don't actually have a key takeaway slide today. I feel like I have failed you. I am so sorry, but thank you for your servant
We're not
leadership.
setting this item tonight.
I will do better in December.
My key takeaway is to get it together.
Sam. Okay, we're going to next have our one public hearing item, which is a public hearing to consider an amendment to the conditional zoning of 27.05 acres at 767 New Haw Creek Road for the purpose of amending the site plan and conditions to build 49 new single-family housing units and 35 townhome units. And we're gonna have Sam Starbaum here to talk to us about this.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council. Again, for the record, my name is Sam Starbaum. I am a planner 3 with the City of Asheville's Planning and Urban Design Department. And before us today, we have a conditional zoning amendment. This is an amendment to the project generally known as the Meadows at New Haw Creek. And today, my presentation to you will be significantly truncated. It will be shorter than normal. It will be considerably more brief. I'm only going to do 4 things. I'm going to look at first these context maps and sort of paint the picture of where this is happening. I'm going to look at what you approved on July 23rd, 2024, last year under Ordinance 5094. Then I'm going to look at only the differences in this proposed amendment. And then finally, I'll conclude, not with key takeaways, but with that staff recommendation. So where are we? We're in Haw Creek, of course. This is northeast Asheville. This is generally accepted to be the 240 tunnel interchange, moving east to Gross Methodist Church, moving north into Sonley Estates, and generally the Blue Ridge Parkway. You can see that by the yellow sun there in the left image. And then on the right image, you have the subject parcel. As the mayor had indicated, this is 27.05 acres. This is bisected by New Haw Creek Road. You can see on the west, the treed portion on the right, or on the right is the east, west is on the left on this screen. You can see this is just north of the Charlie Bullman Park. Throughout this presentation, I will refer to that as the ball field property, and then you can also see it as just north of Evergreen Charter School. And I wanted to include this slide here, not necessarily for council, but for those watching at home. I've heard a lot of information. I've heard even more misinformation about what is happening this evening. I wanted to be clear that this is currently zoned residential expansion. This is not zoned RS4. This is zoned residential expansion, and that happened under that same ordinance, 5094, a year ago on July 23rd, 2024. The standards we are evaluating this project are not against RS4, they are against residential expansion. And more crucially, if this application is not approved this evening, this is not automatically rezoned back to RS4. This will remain residential expansion until another rezoning application is put forward. So again, this is residential expansion, and the information I am presenting is weighing this against residential expansion standards. And I also wanted to include this slide here, even though this is something you are all well familiar with. I wanted to talk about the future land use map. This is, as is the case with a lot of Haw Creek, considered a residential neighborhood for that future land use designation. Now, a residential neighborhood is historically developed following a single master plan, has limited access, it prioritizes pedestrian connectivity, and generally these residential neighborhoods tend to approach 3 to 5 dwelling units per acre. More crucially, over time, these types of developments can accommodate a variety and type of housing, including but not limited to townhomes. So here's what was approved on July 23rd, 2024. This is the site plan. You can see here in the north, there is vehicular access through Sleepy Hollow. You can also see where the greenway connects through to Sleepy Hollow, and then also to New Haw Creek through the bridge that was existing prior to Helene. Anything shown in green is going to be open space or tree canopy preservation. or alternatively, the negotiated landscape buffer as part of the northern portion. And then simply, here's what's changing with this new conditional zoning amendment. There are two things in the conditions document, document E, and then we'll look at the site plan on the next slide. Number one, it's changing the vehicular access. So the applicant seeks to retain the right, if possible, to go through Sleepy Hollow or access through New Haw Creek Drive. That would be a right-hand turn onto a new drive that would go over a bridge. We'll look at that soon. And then the other thing that is new as part of the conditions is what Planning and Zoning Commission approved when we saw them in September, and that is this bridge. Should the applicant choose to go through New Haw Creek, this bridge will match or exceed the 100-year floodplain base flood elevation. And this is what this looks like in practice. This is the proposed site plan for this conditional zoning amendment. And there are 4 changes, and that is all that changes in terms of the site plan. You can see these 2 lower circles. You can see the bridge. This is a 95-foot bridge. There's been a lot of information about size. That bridge, as measured on the stamped engineered plans, is 95 feet. Then moving immediately east of that, again to the right, you have 2 retaining walls, which make the road raised as the slope sort of slopes upward, and again, as you move east. And then north of there, you can see, one, that the greenway doesn't connect all the way to Sleepy Hollow in this configuration, nor does it connect to New Haw Creek Road. And then there are also a pair of retaining walls connecting the walking path to that first row of homes, which is Bear Grass Lane. So 4 new retaining walls, the bridge, and no connection through the greenway. So that is the proposed amendment. Those are the changes before you today. I did want to stress what does not change. One of the negotiated conditions was a sidewalk through, again, those ball fields. The city has a sidewalk project that starts at Beverly and ends at Bell. Part of what happened under 5094 was there was a community negotiation that the developer would provide sidewalks through those ballparks to this greenway. That condition remains under this proposed conditional zoning amendment. And you can see here we're at about 80% construction design. We're still waiting on some NCDOT right-of-way information, and the applicant has also sort of pressed pause on this as we go through the final steps of entitlement. But by all means, that is still intended to move forward with this conditional zoning amendment. And that brings us to the review process, what brought us here. Again, Technical Review Committee saw this earlier this summer in August 18th. That was approved. Planning and Zoning approved this unanimously on September 3rd with that condition that the bridge crest, should the applicant choose to access this site through New Haw Creek, would have a bridge crest that matches or exceeds the 100-year floodplain. And then here's the 4th and final part of my presentation. I've said this twice to Planning and Zoning. I've said this now twice to you, City Council. This is not a perfect development. Staff readily admits this. The applicant will readily admit this. But this does meet community goals as espoused in Living Asheville, the comprehensive plan. Because this meets substantially, if not nearly to a T, the future land use designation of residential neighborhood, and because this supports a livable built environment and a resilient economy by making streets more walkable and by increasing and diversifying the housing supply, staff does concur with Planning and Zoning Commission and recommends approval for this conditional zoning amendment. Thank you.
Any questions before we open the public hearing? Or actually, we're going to hear from the applicant. Any questions of Sam?
I want to hear from
Not
the
yet.
community first.
We may come back to you, Sam.
Yeah,
Thank you.
And before I sit down, I would like to point out that we have Nancy Watford with Stormwater, and then also Brad here for any legal questions, as well as Chris Cairns from Transportation. So
Full
we have a
Perfect.
bevy of experts.
Transportation, stormwater, legal, got it.
Yeah, the whole bouquet.
So now we'll hear from the applicant, and then we'll open the public hearing to the public. Yep, there it goes. Sorry,
Good-
high tech.
Good evening, Mayor, council members, staff. Congratulations, we will miss you. My name is Derek Allen. I'm with Allen Stahl and Kilborn. Marty Benson is with me. He's with our firm as well. Other members of our team tonight are here. Kevin Jackson is my client and the developer here. Warren Sugg from Civil Design Concepts, who's been working on this for years. And Andrew Bick from Headwaters Engineering, who's a hydraulic engineer who does flood modeling for us related to this particular parcel, which has been particularly useful as we are in a post-Helene world. First, I want to start in that we don't believe this is a zoning amendment, but we will go through this process as though it is a zoning amendment. I want to iterate where Sam left off, that this is an approved development. This is the product of extensive meetings back and forth with city council members, with planning staff, with neighbor groups from various sides because they don't all match up in this particular neighborhood. This project has been endorsed by Asheville for All. It's been endorsed by Mountain True. It has a greenway with public access easement. It's got a sidewalk extension connecting to the city sidewalk ending at Bell Road. It has 3.8 acres of contiguous preserved tree canopy, more than 4 acres of open space. It has a natural service trail system that's embedded in it. It has a construction materials limitation that was negotiated by the neighbor groups. It's got screening on all sides. It has a condition that requires us to maintain the topsoil, and it includes discounted lots for nonprofits. This one has been through the meetings. The only change is a change of requirement here, and that's because we can't get access through what Condition 4 makes us do. Condition 4 requires us to access the project from Sleepy Hollow Drive. That condition has been deemed invalid and void from the city attorney's office. We agree with that. When that becomes invalid and void, we have to look to your underlying zoning ordinance to determine what to do next. The invalid condition is stricken from the conditions and read out. The remainder of the conditional zoning ordinance, the 20+ conditions that we have, are all still active and all still work. So the question is, how do we get access if the condition that required our access on Sleepy Hollow Drive, how do we get access? Very simple. We look at the underlying zoning district, which is residential expansion, and those standards apply. Those standards mandate that vehicular access should be limited to arterials or collector streets. The underlying zoning ordinance condition related to connectivity requires this project to exit out on New Haw Creek Road. The great thing about that for the city is New Haw Creek Road's a state road. It doesn't require a city driveway permit. It's an NCDOT permit, which we've already applied for. The thing for us is we maintain that it's not an amendment to the zoning plan, but it's required by operation of law. When Condition 4, the Sleepy Hollow Drive access condition, is read out of the conditions, we have to comply with the underlying zoning ordinance. We have to. And that is by way of New Haw Creek Road. If that's not the case, then this property is left with zero access. If it can't access out onto New Haw Creek Road under this conditional zoning, which is very specific to this project, it has no access. If it has no access, then the city, either through staff or through the city council, has taken that land. It has condemned that land because that land can no longer be used. The proposed amendment simply acknowledges this fact and makes this site plan comply with the underlying residential expansion zoning district requirements to exit out onto the collector street, which is New Haw Creek Road. And the only change is what Sam put out there, and that is to the access. It's the same density, it's the same number of lots, it's the same uses. It's the same conditions, except for the access condition. It's the same neighbor amenities. It has the same endorsement by Asheville for All and Mountain True, because this is the version that was endorsed at Planning and Zoning in 2024 and approved by Planning and Zoning in 2024. It wasn't until after Planning and Zoning that the Sleepy Hollow Road access even became a thing. And it didn't become a thing because people opposed the bridge. It became a thing because they wanted a lot reduction of 11 lots. They wanted contiguous wooded area in the back of almost 4 acres to be preserved. And they wanted a lot reduction, and that was it. And the way to do it then was to access by way of Sleepy Hollow Road. It still has the greenway of the public access easement, still has the sidewalk extension, still has the contiguous preserved tree canopy, still has the trail system, the construction standards, and the lots reserved for nonprofits. That should be the end of the analysis. We believe that that's legally mandated, the end of the analysis. However, since we are here, we will finish it up. The bridge that we're proposing is better than any connection along New Haw Creek Road. New Haw Creek Road has 17 other crossings. The bridge that we've not yet built will be the only one that spans the entire floodway, and it does so by double the distance. It will be the only one that is built to pass the 100-year flood event. The only one. None of them do that now. The Sleepy Hollow Road bridge that the city owns and has to go fix now, that one doesn't. That one was topped during the flood. And the Bell Road bridge crossing was topped during the flood. The city has, through staff, requested that we do hydraulic modeling for this project, even though it's not required by the city ordinance. And given the context in a post-Helene world, we thought that made sense, and we've had that done. And that's why Andrew Bick from Headwaters was hired. We have his CV up here. And in this part of the world, in Western North Carolina, if you have a project where you're looking for what kind of flood modeling works, Andrew Bick is who you call. And so that's what we've done. And he's done that modeling. And we've sat down with all the folks in City Council who would sit with us to walk through that, to show that a couple of things. The modeling shows that there are no impacts. Bless you, Bill.
Thank you, Derek.
That there are no impacts either upstream or downstream as a result of putting in this bridge in a 100-year flood event. We wanted to also know if we could stay out of the floodway, and we have done that. The bridge supports stay out of the floodway. The bridge does not get topped in a 100-year flood event. Simply getting rid of the driveway that has been destroyed reduces flood levels to the north of our property by 3 feet. I've seen all kinds of diagrams and illustrations related to this have come from folks that are not part of our team. None of those that I've seen have been engineered. Most of them are not even to scale, and they certainly have not been done by a hydraulic engineer. I'm betting that Andrew Bick is the only hydraulic engineer that's in this room. If we have questions about any of the flood modeling, let's ask him. It is odd to me that we are feeling like we are immediately in election season now for offices that are going to be elected next November. But here we are. I want to remind us of what we have done as a community and what we've asked really smart people to do for us as a community related to housing. Housing is one of those things that everybody likes to talk about on the campaign trail, but when the rubber meets the road, which is in this room, and we're voting on projects, that's when we really have to look at that. We know what the Bowen report told us, that we have a 5-year housing gap of nearly 12,000 units. That's 12,000 units to make up in 5 years. We also know that the 3 big complaints related to housing in our community are cost of living, and how do we fix that? Add more units. That's Econ 101. That's a supply and demand analysis. Traffic. Our traffic is by and large derivative of people driving from their homes that they can't afford in town, but somewhere else into town to their jobs and then back out to the traffic donut, the development donut. And then homelessness. Homelessness is a housing problem. They've written a book, and that's the title of it. If you haven't read it, it's a must read. It's a must read for our community. These are 3 of our biggest things that we talk about. We talk about housing.
Thank you. Does anyone have questions for the applicant?
Yeah, I do, and it's really one because I don't understand. You mentioned a couple of times that you don't consider this to be an amendment. You even explained why you don't. I didn't understand your explanation. So can you reiterate why this isn't, in your opinion, an amendment, and why that is important? What significance
Sure.
would that make?
It's not an amendment because condition 4, which is the Sleepy Hollow Road access condition, is void. And because that's void, you then look just an academic application of the underlying zoning ordinance. The residential expansion standards require access out onto arterial or collector streets. And that's the end of the analysis, is that we have asked the city to say, yes, we acknowledge that you can change your site plan to connect to the road that our zoning ordinance requires you to connect to. It's an acknowledgement of the law. And if we are in a court of law, it's akin to a declaratory judgment request.
Okay. And so then you would think it would be a taking?
Correct.
Because you don't,
Have
then what would you do? What would be your next course of action if you assumed it was a taking? Does that mean you would go ahead and build a road? Or, play it out for me.
Sure. We have in place what we believe we are entitled to. And if the city staff don't or can't or won't move it forward, then at that point, we believe there's a taking. And at that point, we resort to the legal system to back that determination up.
Just following up on that a little bit, so, because was it our agenda briefing? We've had so many meetings together in the last 10 days, that we were informed that there may be a staff-level decision. Can we get, maybe that's not a question for you as much as it is for our own legal department. So council was last made aware that staff may execute a decision on this bridge that would circumvent this process. So am I to assume that staff did not decide, or?
Staff has reviewed this as requested by the applicant. The applicant has made a few different requests. I'll go over those quickly for you. The original request was a determination regarding whether or not that condition showing the access through Sleepy Hollow was void or not. And that decision and determination was made by my office, that given the current circumstances and the fact that the road would require infrastructure to be built on property the applicant doesn't own or control, that condition is not something the city could, at this point, under the circumstances that we find ourselves in today, could hold the applicant to, meaning that at this point, that particular condition is legally void. Second question that followed that, which went to the planning director, is whether or not, essentially by operation of law, they are then already compliant with this existing plan and the zoning rights and entitlements that they have today. The planning director made a determination that that was not the case, that it was not already compliant. And the final request was whether or not the planning director was willing to make what's called a minor modification approval, which allows for just what it says, minor modifications to be made to pre-approved plans that can be done at the staff level. The planning director has opined this week in an official determination that she was unwilling to find that this was a minor modification, and this is why you find it before you tonight.
And so that is basically saying planning does consider this to be an amendment because we're at minor.
They're
It would not have
considering
been
it
an
more than minor.
amendment.
Planning has taken the position that this does not qualify as a minor amendment.
And so I wanted,
So in other words, planning's opinion is it requires an amendment to the conditional zoning that must be considered by council.
Correct.
So then it comes to us. And I guess I'm speaking up because I want to address the neighborhood. I see a lot of neighbors in the room, and this has been a long project, and I know I sat in a room with many of you and suggested this Sleepy Hollow access. So I'm trying to decide and learn and understand as a council person how
this situation has occurred, because in some ways I'm concerned that we made a misstep. So when we first approved this project, we included a requirement or a condition in this case that had no legal standing in the end. Like, help me understand, and the community understand.
And they agreed to it.
But, right, so in conditional zoning, the applicant and the council must agree to those conditions, the list of conditions, so I know that, but I guess I'm trying to understand how to prevent this from happening again.
Councilmember Turner, that's an excellent question. And I think it's,
Probably us not throwing conditions at Brad in 2 seconds before the vote.
Right, so I
In the
mean,
future.
let's get to this, because, so sometimes, like, the Springside development came to us recently, and there was lots of conjecture about sightlines. This is another example where we've got neighborhoods saying, you know, when I pull out to turn, I can't see, that's a sight line, I need a clear sight line. Then we've got engineers that say a sight line is a measurement of X, Y, Z. And so in those cases, we default. We know that those engineers have the authority to make that decision, and we do not. So did we, as a council, undertake some kind of condition or decision that we had no authority to take?
I think it's important to note that in a lot of conditional zoning requests, there are outstanding items which, as of the time that you vote on them, are not completely finalized yet. Perhaps that is approvals from a state agency, be it DEQ, be it NCDOT. So there are issues, including our own final TRC approval, which occurs oftentimes after council approval. In this particular case, one of the items that was left unresolved completely at the time that council made a decision on it was the final property allowances or ownership rights necessary to access Sleepy Hollow. That is probably on the scale of speculation, a little higherly speculative than some of those other items that I just mentioned. And it's going to be a situation where, going forward, and as is always the case, we should, as a council and a city and staff giving you recommendations, let you know how speculative some of those things may be. Others are a little more formulaic, some like this one. There was a belief at the time that that would be able to be acquired by the applicant, so they requested to move forward, and council honored that request. Going forward, I think that this is a little of an oddity more than a regular occurrence, but there are situations sometimes where there is a degree of speculation in some of the elements of a plan.
And it's not like we can list conditions on those assumptions. Should this fail, then condition, you know, there's just no way.
Didn't we do something like that the last time? Like, could we have said, you know, we approve if you get acquisition of this land, if not, then this is
Correct,
the second
correct.
best?
We have done that even recently, Vice Mayor. We have set the conditions such that the individual conditions, approval for the entire plan may be adopted, but final approval or implementation is contingent upon certain things happening within a certain amount of time as well. So we can do that. This particular one, that was not added to this condition.
Okay.
However, I will point out that the analysis that you just went through, in terms of having that contingency in the back, operates exactly the same way. You have that always here, because once that condition is read out, you have the Unified Development Ordinance, your ordinance, to fall back on, and those are the controlling standards.
So my question would have been, what if, and this doesn't matter, but for future, what if it wouldn't have been approved unless you could acquire access to the land? Like, what if
we'd had
body
different
wouldn't have
language?
approved it? I don't know what we would have done. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Does that question me?
Yeah, no, it does, and that's why I'm
I think
asking you
that's a
too,
great
because it's a
question for the
learning
city
moment for
attorney.
me. I'm often in the room trying to settle these things and come to some kind of mediation, and I want to make sure that we're doing the best to represent the community in those actions. And so this is a messy one, is what it feels like. This feels messy. And it sounds like if council doesn't agree to this tonight, then it will enter into some kind of legal process. And then that legal process will be work its way out and never come to us again. It'll just be finalized that way. Is that correct? Okay.
And if that happens, let's say you take a different route, the conditions that you negotiate with the neighborhood, would those all still stand?
Those are in, right?
Well, it depends.
I
Yeah.
suppose that depends. I mean, there are some other conditions that are in here now that have not been challenged by my client that are also in that kind of same category. The one that jumps out the most, I suppose, is the sidewalk condition, because that's on land that we don't control.
Oh.
I hate
Making
to
up-
ask this question. Can't you just go to DOT and get a permit for your road and go around?
We can.
For your
and
driveway?
we have that in place, but while we're in this process, when we went to, back up, when we went to staff, and we love working with staff, love Sam, he's great. The idea was, this was not an amendment to the zoning, but rather a modification. We maintain that it's a staff level, not a step level, a staff level modification, because these kinds of modifications, in terms of what's happening internal to the site plan, happen through TRC all the time at just the staff level.
They do.
In an abundance of caution, we were encouraged to go through the process because no one thought that this was going to be a big deal, because no one cared about the bridge. We went back and looked at all the minutes, we looked at the videos. The bridge in and of itself wasn't a point of contention the first time this came through. The bridge only came about as a measure of getting rid of 11 lots, preserving the 3.8 acres, pushing the homes up off the hill, getting rid of retaining walls. That's how this roadway came into being to begin with. So we believe that this was going to be kind of a no-brainer going through. At TRC, it's a no-brainer. Planning and Zoning Commission, 5-0. It's only recently become, I guess, opposite of a no-brainer is a brainer. It's recently become a brainer here in the last little bit. And it's baffling to me, because in a time when we have, a massive housing shortage, we have 84 lots that we are potentially walking away from.
I did hear the community back then not necessarily address the bridge, but they did address the intersection. That was the concern, the intersection on that main road. But yeah, so, okay, and Vice Mayor Mosley brought this up. So there is also an opportunity for you to go right to DOT, explain your situation, and get a legal right of access.
I will tell you, we're already doing that, and I expect that NCDOT will give us that drive permit.
So then wouldn't this hearing be moot?
No, because it would just be access, and then there'd be no bridge.
The bridge isn't a use. I think that we can do that and the bridge. I think that getting COs on the homes
Yeah.
is where it hits the road, and that's
They can
literally
get
what we're
access,
asking.
but
We were
then
asking staff for was an
after
acknowledgement
they get
of
access from
everything
DEQ, they have
associated
to
with you getting
make
that
a road.
NCDOT permit and getting the permit from DEQ and the Corps to
Yeah, that's
cross over the creek. Everything that's associated with that, internal to the site plan, is all part of staff authorized changes.
So if you got the
I see. So if you
DOT
had
to approve the access, then TRC and all our subcommittees of technical engineers and wizards, for those of you listening, will handle the rest.
Correct.
Okay.
Council, I just,
So you're
Hold on,
basically-
let Brad chime in.
Yeah,
Sorry.
just
I
quickly,
apologize, Mayor.
I would suggest that we're talking about a hypothetical situation that staff has not had the opportunity to weigh in on yet. So I would not rest totally on the assumption that staff would assume that a DOT approval and technical review would be sufficient. Until staff has had the ability to actually weigh in on that in the planning department, I wouldn't want you to rest on that assumption entirely.
Understood. And then is there, I mean, this maybe isn't something you'll even answer, but is there some reason that you're here tonight then? I mean, like, you could have taken that route, but you're doing this instead. Do you need a vote from council for some legal reason?
That's a complicated question, and this has been very much a conversation as we've gone through, because things have evolved. If we're going a declaratory judgment route, I do need a vote from council. If we want to make things easy, then a positive vote from council here puts us all on the way to putting these homes into commerce. And that's the number one thing, is minimizing the time and expense it takes for us to put those into play. This is the exact same development, and we're all talking about the bridge, and we all know that that bridge that we're proposing is a better option than trying to go across Sleepy Hollow Road. We all do. Like, we all know that.
For the environment, you mean, for water?
For the environment, for flood mitigation, for flood survivability, all those, it's a much better option than the Sleepy Hollow Bridge that the city has to go fix itself.
I have a question about that. I'm trying to understand the spirit of the request from my colleagues. Is the idea that this would then go to DOT and the Technical Review Committee, or DOT and then our staff?
I think what they're saying is they, as a parallel option, they could go to DOT and get the driveway permit. And then the changes that are necessary at that point to the site plan are so negligible that they would be minor and staff could make decisions on a staff level. That's what Derek's position is. Brad is cautioning us that, hey, you never know exactly how it'll shake out. Don't assume that's a definite, but yeah.
It feels a little bit like throwing staff under the bus because it's a hard decision. I'm just trying to be cautious and understand what the implications are for our staff, because we want our staff to be seen in community as trustworthy and neutral and sticking to the rules, and it feels like we're deferring, but that's just where I'm sitting.
It's a tough one, and historically, we've had times where staff's had to make really difficult decisions, and they've had a lot of community backlash as a result. Staples, I'm just gonna name one. Just going way back for anyone who's been around for a while. Right. So does anyone have any other questions for the applicant at this point before we open it up to the public hearing? Okay. Okay, we're gonna go into public comment. Public comment on Haw Creek. I have 20 people signed up. Oh, you're all groaning, but you.
You signed up.
You signed up. How do you want to consider, other than John Appleby, who's got 3 people yielding time to him so he can have 10 minutes, and he's our opener, tonight's opener. Would you consider going down to 2 minutes each so we can, or do you want your 3 minutes? Sometimes people write out their remarks and they want to say them all. Are we in favor of 2 minutes? Raise your hand. Are we in favor of 3 minutes? Raise your hand. Okay, all right.
We're here for 3 minutes.
We're here. Okay. Are you in favor of 5 minutes? No, I'm just kidding. What?
But there's 20 people.
What are you
3
telling me?
minutes.
Hold on, Maggie's got
1 hour limit.
Yeah, yes, we have the 1 hour limit, but I think we're gonna be.
With 20 people in 3 minutes.
Yeah, we have a 1 hour hearing limit for each item on the agenda. So feel free to stay through to the end. Okay, so as I mentioned, John Appleby is the first person signed up to speak. Folks who are yielding their time, let me call your name and please just raise your hand. Janet Tubbs, yes, waving. Patrick Holland, start waving, yep. And Jeff Altman, if you would wave. Thank you very much. John, Mr. Appleby, you will have 10 minutes, and watch the lights on the lectern.
Okay.
Oh, if there's a slide deck, we are already, I hope you have key takeaways.
Lesson learned. I could summarize.
All right.
I don't think you'd like it.
All right, you will have 10 minutes, sir, and there are lights there on the lectern. Please just watch those for your time.
Okay. Thank you. So here we are again. When I first heard that Mr. Jackson was proposing a bridge to solve all these access issues, I thought, wow, this needs to be a big structure. After all, the size of the Haw Creek floodplain is significant. It's about 350 feet. But wait, we really don't know how extensive the floodplain is. There's been no real technical study completed post-Helene. But when you dig in, the proposed bridge doesn't even span a third of the distance, despite what Mr. Allen just told us. It goes a third of the way across. Sam very proudly sent me the exact bridge measurement, just 95 feet 7 inches. So what happens to the remaining 250 feet of distance? Mr. Jackson calls it a berm, but let's be clear, it's a dam.
Hold on,
Why?
we're having a little bit of glitchiness. Maggie, are you going to tell Dan down in the basement to see if he can get that thing to calm down? Okay, please proceed.
According to Mr. Jackson's own plans, the distance between the Haw Creek Road and the creek is 15 feet. So just stop for a moment and think how high that is. 15 feet. That's 2.5 standard doors. If I might butcher Shakespeare, a berm by any other name is a dam. So what we really have is a very small bridge, coupled with a dam, with a road running along the top of it. So just imagine the water in the event of another significant rain event, which we all expect now. The water forcing its way through with a small opening, rushing downstream, impacting businesses and homes, with a dam threatening to back up the water, affecting houses upstream. We destroy the floodplain just so we can access 49 homes. And who bears the risk of this? Local community and the city. Clearly, this is a major infrastructure project well beyond the scope of the original conditioning zoning vote. It's interesting that Mr. Jackson's expert doesn't believe that this wall of water is anywhere close to 350 feet. But if you actually get out there with a tape measure, as you can see the measurements on the screen, we know it's greater than 350 feet because we measured it. I asked Sam to come and participate, but he didn't want to do that. This was taken just 2 hours after the storm. And you can already see the water receding, but just imagine how much bigger it would have been. So you can see that it's greater than 2 times the 95 feet that Mr. Allen just told us is the floodplain. So the real purpose isn't anything to do with the bridge. It's about getting access via One Sleepy Hollow Drive. It always has been. The Haw Creek Community Association made a closed-door deal proposing an access route that bulldozed a neighborhood home. You all guys all talk about this access. It's someone's house. Their land goes to Haw Creek Road. But we just casually just say, we'll build a road through it. We'll get approval, no problem. In July 2024, you chose to look the other way. It was only last week that the city attorney finally admitted there was a legal issue preventing access, even though we all knew there was a problem before the vote. After wasting 15 months, Mr. Jackson is now back with his major modification, all in an effort to secure funding so he can sell it as fast as possible. And now he is pushing another backroom deal to bypass the city council vote. The community opposes the dam. There's been no updated H&H study. This is a massive infrastructure project with no supporting technical specifications. The stormwater mitigation system is located in the floodplain, so it's basically window dressing. The greenway is in the floodplain, which will last as long as the first big storm. It is literally greenwashing. Over 2,100 people signed the original petition against the project and were ignored. Over 3,600 city residents have visited the hawcreekbridge.com website. We will continue to enforce our restricting covenants, which is the reason that we can't get access through One Sleepy Hollow Drive. The council can approve the dam in the floodplain and live with the consequences, or the council can finally decide this project, and especially this latest proposal, simply does not pass the smell test. It never has. Lastly, I would ask each of you, pull out your cell phones, those in the audience especially, go to the hawcreekbridge.com website, pull up the video, but I warn you, it is gut-wrenching to relive that morning after Helene, and you watch the water flow down through that floodplain. And can you really believe that we're talking about damming that wall of water? Thank you.
Thank you. We apologize for the flashing up there. I guess we had some, I don't know if it was the presentation or Dan. Okay, so little technical issue. Okay, now we're into the 3-minute speakers, and the first is Tom Lodge. Next up will be Joel Schumann.
Thank you for this opportunity. I'm Tom Lodge. I'm a consulting ecologist with over 50 years of experience. Central expertise is in wetlands and wildlife. I've had clients ranging from 19,000 acres of residential development in Southwest Florida to Kennedy Space Center, Florida Department of Transportation, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and many small developments where I've worked with stormwater engineers on stormwater problems to solve wetland impacts. I'm disturbed about the 767 development. On a personal note, I live in Haw Creek, and I'm alarmed at the density of single-family houses and apartments that would result in, first of all, construction impacts. We're witnessing what a sidewalk does now. And in the long run, then, we'd have many more cars on New Haw Creek and Old Haw Creek. Number of people use Old Haw Creek to avoid congestion on New Haw Creek. I'm one of them. And that'd be really critical in the case of wildfire evacuation, which has not really been addressed. When I moved here 8 years ago, I was comforted by the zoning that we would not have densities that were excessive, but I was amazed at how easily the zoning was changed that, in my opinion, to accommodate the bottom line of a developer. From my professional experience, I'm concerned about reducing the size and therefore the capacity of the floodplain within the 767 development. First, stormwater retention system is being located in the floodplain, which reduces capacity for the natural floodplain, existing floodplain. And filled areas for the approaches to the bridge take up space in the floodplain. Stormwater system and bridge approaches have both reduced the capacity of the existing floodplain to attenuate southward moving flows through Haw Creek system. A reduced floodplain could therefore increase flows to downstream Haw Creek areas where we'd endanger crossings at Bell Road, Graham, Dogwood Grove, Keenan Drive, and those would potentially isolate people from access, from egress. And then from everyone, Haw Creek, in Haw Creek Valley, there are only 3 ways out. There's Beverly, Arco, and Crockett. And Arco is particularly low, so it gets easily compromised, so that leaves only 2.
Thank you.
So I'm concerned about the development. Thank you.
Thank you. Joel Schuman and then Chris Pelley.
Hello, Mayor. Hello, Council. My name is Joel Schuman. I'm a Haw Creek resident. My home was pictured in that aerial view that we saw. I'm here to ask you to vote in favor of the amendment to the conditional zoning in Haw Creek. By voting yes, you'll be setting up Haw Creek for the long term and attacking Asheville's hardest problem, housing affordability. I'm a member of Asheville DSA. I'm a member of Asheville for All. I'm a member of AFBU. I'm with any organization that is trying to tackle our problem of making Asheville affordable for working people. Great things are happening in Haw Creek. When this issue was first brought before council in July of last year, we were all wondering, when are we going to get the sidewalk? When are we going to get the bridge over the creek by Creekside Tap House? Both of those things are being built right now. The sidewalk is going to connect my house to the Greenway. The whale outpost is happening on every single Friday night. The line at Penny Cup got so long that 2 more coffee shops sprung up. And all of this is before the sidewalk is finished. What I'm trying to say is that Haw Creek is becoming a great walkable neighborhood right before our eyes. And I'm appreciative. I'm appreciative of my neighbors for voting for the bond that allowed us to get a sidewalk. I'm appreciative of my neighbors for beautifying our brand new library and fixing up the welcome sign at the front of our neighborhood. I'm appreciative of City Council for setting the policies that have made these things happen. If we want this trend to continue, if we want the whale full and the barber to get impossible to get an appointment with, then we need to be able to afford to live in Asheville. There's only one way to make that happen. We need to build lots of housing. We need to build missing middle housing, and we need housing built yesterday. I was here in July of last year for the massive meeting about the original zoning variance, and we still haven't left the planning stage of our development. This delay worsens Asheville's affordability crisis. I don't think there's anyone to blame for the delay, yet the systems we have created are such that it can take years to break ground on a new project. These are the systems that are causing our affordability crisis. In my perfect vision of Haw Creek, I can ride my bike down a 25-mile-per-hour road all the way to Tunnel. There's more restaurants. There's people on the sidewalk at all hours. There's a bus to West Asheville every 20 minutes. It's not an impossible vision, but we need to continually choose to envision that goal. So, in order to make Asheville and Haw Creek great walkable places to live, that have plenty of places to live, I urge City Council to help move this project forward with all due haste and others like it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So our next speaker is Chris Pelley, and then the rest of the list looks like it got deleted. Is it?
There's some kind of technical.
Yes, strange. We're going to find the rest of the speaker list.
I think you're still
Oh,
here.
it's back.
Okay, it's back. Phew, okay. Maggie, that buzzer.
We're having technical issues tonight.
It's ghosts.
It's
Good evening. Debra, you know you're going to miss this. Okay.
It's so hot.
Good
Okay,
evening.
Chris Pelley, and we're glad you're back.
Thank you.
If anyone has any complaints about the sidewalk construction, I just refer them to you.
Oh, yeah, they already come. They already come.
I'm telling him that about the bridge too.
Yeah. So I am Chris Pelley, and I serve as president of the Haw Creek Community Association. In the 3 years the Haw Creek community has faced the proposed development at 767, our association has never spoken in opposition. We have always recognized Haw Creek has a part to play in addressing the citywide need for more housing. This is why our board of directors unanimously supported the development agreement approved in July 2024, which allows 84 homes. An important reason why we supported the plan was because it included concessions that provide long-term benefit to the surrounding communities. As mentioned, these include the protection of almost 5 acres of mature hardwood trees, sidewalks along New Haw Creek Road at Charlie Bullman Park, a greenway along our namesake, and an expanded vegetative buffers for the west side neighbors of this property. The new sidewalk and greenway alone total about 1,300 feet, and taken together with the 4,200 feet of sidewalk now being installed on New Haw Creek Road, will greatly expand safe pedestrian options for surrounding residents. All of this was possible through negotiations that resulted in the development plan approved last year. An additional provision the developer requested called for subdivision entrance off of Lower Sleepy Hollow Drive. This was a condition Kevin Jackson's attorney assured us on multiple occasions they were confident of achieving. You assured us you had access, and now you don't. And now, as a result, you want to impose this bridge with all its attendant problems. So again, here we are. Now we're asking City Council to fix your mistake. It is disappointing that after 3 years, we've come to this point, but this is not the fault of City Council, and it's not the fault of the residents. This is a big mistake, and you have to own it. With that, I request City Council oppose the bridge amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Mindy Mahar, and then we have Terry Latanich after that. Tanich. Tom, Tan, Colorado.
Council members, thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Mindy Mahar, and I am both a resident of Haw Creek and a local science teacher. For nearly 20 years, I've taught hydrology, ecosystems, and human impacts on watersheds using research from the EPA, the USGS, and the National Floodplain Management Association, to name a few. The science I teach applies directly to your decision about the proposed bridge entrance for the meadows at Haw Creek development. One of the first things I teach my students is that a watershed never ends at the edge of a neighborhood or a city. Haw Creek flows into the Swannanoa River, which is into the French Broad River Basin and ultimately makes it all the way to the Gulf of Mexico. Every decision we make upstream directly influences the water quality and flood behavior downstream. What we alter here in Asheville affects communities hundreds of miles away. Decades of research show that when we build raised roadways, embankments, or bridge structures inside an active floodplain, we increase downstream flooding, accelerate runoff, and disrupt the natural storage and filtration services that wetlands provide. These aren't hypothetical concerns. They're documented across the Southeast, where heavier rainfall events are already amplifying flood severity. And with increased runoff comes increased pollution. Point sources such as pipes or outfalls can introduce concentrated pollutants when storm systems are overwhelmed. But it's non-point source pollution that poses the greatest risk during development. Sediment, oils, chemicals, fertilizers, and debris washing off new impervious surfaces and construction sites. Wetlands normally help filter these pollutants, but once their integrity is compromised, their ability to filter and store water is drastically reduced, often permanently. The Haw Creek floodplain and wetlands are functioning exactly as they should, slowing water, reducing flood peaks, and capturing pollutants before they move downstream. Introducing an elevated roadway and additional impervious surfaces directly conflicts with evidence-based best practices for flood-resilient communities. It's also worth noting that the original development plan avoided the sensitive crossing entirely. That design aligned with federal floodplain guidance and respected the natural function of the watershed. Replacing it with a plan that increases environmental risk and contradicts established science not only endangers the creek, it undermines community trust. As both an educator and a neighbor who cares deeply about the long-term health of our watershed, I strongly urge you to reject the proposed amendment and uphold the entrance design that protects the Haw Creek floodplain, or reconsider the project entirely and preserve the land. Thank you for your time and for grounding your decision in science, research, and responsible stewardship of our shared watershed.
Thank you. I'm supposed to remind you that our rules prohibit clapping except in celebration of our retiring city manager. So.
This is the clap. This
Yeah,
is how we know.
This is how we know you like it. You give us some jazz hands. Okay. Thank you.
I'm Terry Latone.
Yes, all right. And then after you will be
I've
Steve
spoken with
Scholl.
many of you before. My name is Terry Latone. I live in Sound Lake Estates at the northern end of Haw Creek. And I was one of the principal negotiators for the Haw Creek Community Association as we were going through the negotiations prior to the adoption of the ordinance. What Mr. Allen said today is truly remarkable. The only reason Haw Creek Community Association agreed to the Sleepy Hollow option was because it eliminated the bridge, it eliminated some additional housing units, it eliminated retaining walls in the floodplain. Now, remarkably, the reason we agreed to it is that Mr. Allen indicated at the time that they would have the ability to get an easement to get access to One Sleepy Hollow. At the time, and I guess they still do, have a contingent contract to purchase 767, but they also have an agreement with the folks at One Sleepy Hollow to provide access. So we've gone from Mr. Allen saying that Sleepy Hollow is a viable alternative. If it weren't a viable alternative, we never would have agreed. So basically, we have a situation where he's saying, you approved Sleepy Hollow because I told you you could get in that way. Now, having agreed to that, it's a void obligation. At the time it was adopted, Mr. Allen's position was that he had access. His position when he was presenting to the community was he still believed he had access. It's not clear to me at all how this becomes a void obligation. He has the ability, he's had the ability for the past 15 months to negotiate with the owner of One Sleepy Hollow. There may or may not be a restrictive covenant that prohibits the use of it, but he has not pursued it. What he's done is simply sat for 15 months and now wants to come back and build a 400-foot combination of bridges and retaining walls to gain access. If you go from street level at New Haw Creek Road to the exact same elevation, it's about 400 feet. It's not only an aesthetic nightmare, it's an engineering problem, and you're simply not being told the accurate facts by Mr. Allen. He's the one who said he had access. He's the one who proposed that access. We would not have agreed to the Sleepy Hollow option, but for the fact that Mr. Allen said that that was a viable option. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve Scholl and then Zoe Bodenheimer.
Steve Scholl, wave my time.
You're waving your time. Okay, thank you. Zoe Bodenheimer and then Chris Fleming.
Hello, I'm Zoe Bodenheimer, and I own One Sleepy Hollow Drive.
Oh, welcome.
Okay, all right.
I am under a contract with Jackson, and we are set to close in 2 weeks. So I am also confused about why this option is void. I do know that there are covenants and that there are certain contingencies of neighbors who feel that enforcing these covenants will then make it illegal for him to use it as an access. I just feel like that's very short-sighted when you look at the bigger picture. We're a community that does need housing. We are, like previous people have said, turning into a wonderful walkable community with many coffee shops, restaurants, families, parks, amazing things to access. A bridge is very scary to me. My house fortunately did not flood, neither did my yard during Helene. Also, the water did not go over Sleepy Hollow Drive. I was watching it the entire time. But what did flood, as you saw in the video, was that lower field. And to imagine having a bridge there and how that can affect the water is really scary for our subdivision of Happy Valley and for people who live further down. I also just feel like the bridge is going over wetlands, it's construction over a creek. It's just such a more bigger project when there's already an established entrance on Sleepy Hollow, and then you would do a slight cut through an area that was not flooded that would then give access to the community. So I feel like the contingency of neighbors who have put forth and threatened litigation to Jackson about the covenants, saying that, you know, it will be illegal for you to build this road because of the covenants, and we will pursue litigation if you proceed with that. It's just short-sighted to think that this 27-plus acre parcel in the middle of the city is not going to be developed at some point. We're a growing city. I've lived here my entire life, and I've watched it grow. And I'm happy to still be living here, working here, raising 2 kids here, and I think housing is needed. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
So Chris Fleming and then Barbara Melton.
All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Chris Fleming, and I'm here as one of many neighbors in the Haw Creek Valley who strongly oppose the proposed amendment to the conditional zoning for 767 New Haw Creek Road. First, let me be clear, I'm not against development on the site. What I am against is development that ignores basic principles of floodplain protection and stormwater management. I'm speaking to you with the perspective of a professional who has worked in the field of environmental consulting for over 20 years. Most critically, this amendment introduces serious floodplain impacts. The proposed entry road requires large amounts of fill, reducing flood storage and altering natural flow paths. The attorney for Mr. Jackson stated that the bridge would span the 100-year floodplain. That is incorrect. I can pull the D-firms out and show that. There's actually fill in there. He is spanning the floodway, which is the actual channel. So there is going to be fill in the 100-year floodplain. And then on top of that, even more troubling, and this hasn't been brought up, and it came out, so it was approved by council, and then it went through the final design, and now he's showing all of the underground stormwater detention on the plans. It's in an active floodplain. These systems tend to fail when inundated, which would result in direct discharge of elevated stormwater volumes attributed to increases in impervious surface within the development. This would serve to exacerbate downstream flooding in the watershed already prone to flash floods, threatening bridges, homes, and infrastructure. Floodplains exist for a reason, to protect people and property. Allowing development that compromises these protections is short-sighted and dangerous. The intensity and frequency of storms is increasing, and we as a community need to be proactive. If this project is to move forward, I must insist and urge the council to reject this amendment unless these critical changes are made. A design that places stormwater facilities outside of the floodplain. An entry road that spans the entire floodplain, 100-year floodplain. These are reasonable, responsible requirements. Additionally, these types of development decisions should not even be considered without an updated hydrologic and hydraulic model. Beyond the technical issues of this design, the amendment feels like a bait and switch. The developer is reverting to a site plan that was previously rejected by the community. Were they hoping we wouldn't notice? While some claim the developer has made concessions throughout this lengthy process, the reality is that density remains largely unchanged, tree loss is significant, and the amenities offered are in undevelopable floodplain areas, hardly meaningful. The community has consistently voiced concerns about these issues and more, but have felt dismissed by city leaders. We come to you tonight with real concerns, a lot of cynicism towards city leadership, and with a final plea to prioritize the safety and integrity of the community.
Thank you. Barbara Melton and then Andrew Paul.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council, you've heard from me for 40-some years. I will say that this has been quite the experience with this particular piece of property. I have lived in Haw Creek myself over 80 years, within a stone's throw of this property. The gentleman who owned it was a friend of my father's, and I've known him since I was a baby, and that's been a long time ago. This bridge is a problem. Anything in floodway, floodplain is a problem. And if someone wonders how an old lady like me knows that, it's thanks to the city of Asheville for the education given to me when I served on the flood committee for off and on for 17 years and the stormwater committee. You learn a lot from the Corps of Engineers and with the staff of the city of Asheville to lead you. My one thing is that if this goes through, I certainly hope that we are learning from this terrible experience of Helene, and that when development and other projects come before council or any board, even the county commissioners, that we must think and hope that we do not damage the community. I have watched this creek flood all my life. My youngest son played ball at the ball field. Ball field is not owned by the city of Asheville. It's owned by family members, of my family members. They have to raise money to fix that when that happens. But if it starts flooding where these folks are fixing to put townhomes and houses, then I would suggest you make it a permanent item on your budget for the next 50 years. Thank you.
Oh, Barbara, away with words.
Yes. Andrew Paul and then Amy Shelton. Maggie, how are we doing on our clock?
We have about another 30 minutes.
We're good. It'd be so great if it was like 68 degrees, wouldn't it?
Hey everyone, I'm Andy. I'm a lead organizer with Asheville for All. I just want to say my kids love bridges. In my neighborhood, we have a bunch of bridges. We love all of them. So I don't live in Haw Creek, but we do love bridges. You know, what's left to say? I remember last year we talked a lot about the role that different types of housing have to play in resolving our housing shortage. We now know that we have a 5-year gap of more than 11,000 homes. And when Patrick Bowen was here in August, actually the mayor made this great comment about the role that different buckets of housing have to play. So even though I don't live in Haw Creek, we know that housing markets are regional, and that when we can relieve pressure in terms of demand in parts of the city, that aids other parts of the city, particularly those where more vulnerable populations live. I also just want to say, you know, when we talk about being alarmed by density, when we talk about being comforted by single-family housing, it's kind of like saying that you're alarmed by people. In the past week, we've been talking about people coming to town and trying to thin out our neighborhoods, trying to say people can't live here. People that are trying to move to places for opportunity, trying to find places to raise their families. And when we say no to housing, we're saying no to mobility. We're saying no to all those things. So it's something to keep in mind that maybe tonight we can say yes. We can say yes to housing. We can say yes to freedom of mobility. We can say yes to all the future residents of Haw Creek that might be coming here looking for a place to live, to raise their families. Thanks.
Amy Shelton, and then Stephen Riblet.
Hi, good evening. I'm Amy Shelton, and I live on New Haw Creek Road. I'd like to encourage you to vote to approve the amendment. I want to echo the appreciation and vision that Joel shared earlier, but I'd like to spend my time a bit more focused on how Asheville can address our housing supply shortage. The proposed development in front of you today is not the only housing development that's happening in Haw Creek. However, most of those developments are maybe 3 single-family homes or 5 at best. Those developments do not require conditional rezoning approvals, but this approach to increasing Asheville housing supply is not going to satisfy the city's need for 11,000 or so additional housing units as determined by the Bowen Report. The 767 development is also a drop in the bucket for the housing supply increase. However, the process by which this and other conditional rezoning petitions must go through for approval are setting precedent for future and larger developments that are needed to increase our housing stock. I applaud the council's reflection today during the meeting on their role in adding conditions. This is something that you have control over, this entire approval process, something you have influence over. Please think very carefully about what precedent you may be setting with today's vote. I say this hesitantly, but please do not set a precedent that Helene will delay new developments. I'm concerned that our collective trauma and experience with Helene will paralyze progress in Asheville without hydrological factual support, and honestly, we need your leadership to balance these concerns and needs. Please do not set a precedent of denying amendments due to a lack of analysis and reviews that are intended and are supposed to occur after amendment approvals. Please vote in a manner that benefits the entire city, addressing housing supply needs, and avoid sending a message to developers that city council approvals are near impossible. On a personal note, I'm really thrilled to live in a city and a neighborhood that is growing. I look forward to welcoming new neighbors, my new son that's coming, and seeing future Asheville City residents thrive. So thank you all for your time, and thank you also to city staff for their presentation and work on this matter.
Thank you. Stephen Riblet, and then Marty Benson.
I'm not going to mess with it. Hello, my name is Stephen Riblet. Last time I spoke here, it was a couple months ago, right after the Bowen housing report. Again, that housing report lists an impossible need to build 11,000 homes over the next 5 years. Every step we can take in that direction helps alleviate the home prices for everyone that needs it, both those already living in the community and who would like to move there. It is difficult, if not impossible, to hear the voices of those who have yet to have the opportunity to live somewhere. You can see that in the bias in a lot of the speakers tonight. As mentioned in the questions after the housing report a few months back, every type of housing stock we add helps alleviate the prices for those around it. And going off of Andy's previous comment, it doesn't even have to be in the same neighborhood. What's nice about this development is it has townhomes, which are awesome for adding additional infill without taking up as much space as the many single-family homes that rest around Asheville. I would like to raise a reminder to revisit the UDO to help attainable homes be built that don't only fit the cookie-cutter single-family home design. And lastly, on this amendment, for environmental concerns, let's refer to the engineer who did the study. Thank you all.
Thank you. And then after you, will be Trip Huxley.
Nice. Hello, friends. I'm Marty Benson. I'm a member of the East-West Asheville Neighborhood Association's board. I was recently appointed to the Infrastructure Recovery Board for the city. I do a lot of work with Strong Towns and Asheville for All. Those are the reason that I work for Allen Stahl and Kilbourne. I'm not speaking here on their behalf. I work for them because I like the types of projects that they facilitate. We need housing in town. Yesterday was a second, Mr. Schumann said that we need housing yesterday, and it just so happens that yesterday was the second anniversary of the Missing Middle Housing Study. This project is aligned with the recommendations of the Missing Middle Housing Study, including utilization of existing infrastructure. We have water and sewer and roads there already. Transforming auto-dependent centers along transit-supportive corridors through incremental change. Efficient land use through infill in the built environment. And if you go to page 126 on the Missing Middle Housing Study, you can see that there's no high vulnerability neighborhood for displacement close to this site at all. It's crazy to me that in a town of 100,000 residents, a couple dozen naysayers can routinely kill or severely complicate a project, making it incredibly expensive if and when it is actually created. They always say we're not opposed to building new housing, but this just isn't the right place. Let's do it over there. This particular neighborhood has changed dramatically over the last 70 years, going from sparsely populated agricultural land to pretty dense urban environment. This neighborhood is the poster child for inclusive development. It's not a gentrification scenario, it's not a legacy neighborhood, and there are no displacement concerns. It is true infill at a slightly denser density than what currently is there. This is just another sad and unfair example of the folks who benefited from that change that I just talked about, trying to prevent the change that will benefit others in the same neighborhood, in the same way, and in the community at large. Because they already got theirs. And now they're using their privilege to exclude the most underrepresented stakeholder in the conversation. Those are the people who can't afford to be in that neighborhood. The people who want to be there, but can't, due to a severe lack of housing in town. This infill in a persistently changing neighborhood is being challenged by the people who benefited from the recent change. It's infill of an already developed neighborhood. It's close to downtown, jobs and amenities, national parkland, and it's already served by utilities. The outsized influence of the privileged minority of NIMBYs is a problem.
Trip Huxley, and then Scott Adams.
Hello, my name is Trip Huxley. I live in Haw Creek and I have for 10 years. I have a degree in environmental design and I have come before you and the other planning boards that have had meetings that have allowed us to speak, and I've always said the same thing. I've said that there's no design in this project. Tonight I come to you with a different message. The message this evening is that the people who live in Haw Creek do not feel heard. That may seem ironic, because here I am speaking to you, and you've had 18 people before me who have spoken to you. But what is being said is not being heard. Let me be specific. The very first thing that anyone learns in design school is to look at the environment before they design anything, whether that be a bus station or a bus stop. And when it comes to housing, people have said very rightly that Asheville is in need. This is true. Asheville is in need. And I, like many of the people who have spoken previously, I'm not at all opposed to development. What we're hoping for, though, is responsible development, thoughtful development, development that is directly in response to the environment where it is being developed. This initially looked like a series of chicken coops or perhaps army barracks. Think for a moment of the image of this development. That's army barracks. That is what they look like from a satellite. We are not in Haw Creek, a community of Army barracks. We are a community that has streets that flow through from one to the next, such that people can walk. This is not what we have here. This is a community where we have walkability. That is not what is being designed here. We keep bringing before you issues about fire safety such that we can escape our community. We don't feel heard. Traffic safety, we don't feel heard. And now we have Helene washing through our community, giving us a very clear sense of what life could be like if this were to happen again, what bridges will be taken out, what people will be isolated, what will be the consequence for the community. If you create another 50 houses and all the impervious surfaces that go with them, all that does is increase the amount of water that comes into these. Add to that a berm, which is also sort of a dam in the form of a retaining wall, and a bridge that does not fully span the creek, you just make matters worse. I don't come here thinking I'm going to change your mind. I just come here to tell you that what the people of Haw Creek are thinking is that their concerns about responsible development that suits the restrictions and the challenges within an area are not being done. We're just trying to put up stuff quickly. That's not the way to do it.
Thank you. Scott Adams and then Warren Sugg. Oh, you're waving like don't know? You're you're like, you're tapping out? Okay. All right, Warren Sugg and then Shelley McKechnie. I hope you have an accent because we've had some good ones tonight.
Hey, Warren Sugg, pleasure to be before y'all this evening. I've got a unique perspective. I've been a part of this project from the very get-go, the very first day. I've seen it go through a lot of different changes over those years now. And you know, it has gone through a lot of changes. There's been a lot of dialogue. I've been to a lot of neighborhood meetings. I've been to a lot of meetings with support groups. I've been a part of a lot of discussions on how to do all the things that were asked of us. There's been countless changes. But what hasn't changed is what was approved from last year as far as all those things that were listed out before. I'm not going to take minutes to go over that, but we haven't changed any of that stuff. And if we can turn this on for just one moment. So we're talking about the bridge that's right here. This is the bridge that is spanning over the floodway that's designed above the 100-year flood elevation. This is the area where the wetlands are and the walls of that. What you'll also notice is when we flip back to this plan, very important part down here, this is the approved plans. It has a bridge right here. That's a pedestrian bridge. We've already approved a bridge here. We've already had a study that we're going through here. We're proving out that we're fine. We just have a wider bridge. So there's a lot of discussion about, hey, we've got a bridge. We've got impacts. We've done all these changes. But we've got an approved plan from the city process, all the way from initial TRC through city council, final TRC, and through staff to have a bridge there. So we already have a bridge. We already have these impacts. There was a comment about stormwater being down in the floodplain. Here's where it was on the approved plans. Here's where it is on the plans that are before you tonight. That hasn't changed either. So you heard a lot tonight about different folks being just frustrated with development in general. You know, if we could all probably go back 2-3 years ago, we could have just been 49 units. Use by right, RS4, we would have had this bridge across here, would have never had to come before you all, the first time or the second time. And we would have not had any of those concessions that were made a year ago to save so many trees. I heard a lot about environmental. We would have had those. We do have those now. So I would ask you to strongly consider the already approved plans for just widening the bridge. Thank you.
Our final speaker is Shelley McKechnie. I hope I'm saying it right.
Hey, good evening. My name is Shelley McKechnie.
I live in Haw Creek, just about a half mile further down, deeper into the neighborhood, which means that I drive past this exact site anytime I want to go in and out. There's only one way in or out for me. I'm here to oppose this amendment. I understand the urge to want to build more housing in Asheville. I get it. I understand the urge to want to have housing here. I get it. I understand that. But this is not the place to do it. Or it's not right to build a bridge here. It's not right to build a bridge, a bridge with cars going across it. Mr. Sugg talked about a pedestrian bridge that was approved. It's nothing like a bridge that cars go over, and I feel that insults the intelligence of people to say it is. You've heard the arguments against it. I agree with those, against this bridge. And I just want to say, I mean, we know this is just, pardon the expression, but this is a bridge too far. This is not the right thing to do here. So thank you.
Thank you. I can't believe it took till the last one for that.
Wait on.
Yeah. Okay, those are all the folks that are signed up under public comment. Council, first, are there any remaining questions you might have for staff? Let's get those out of the way. If there are questions, if people, any questions for staff?
I have some questions.
Okay, who do you want to talk to?
Well,
Or maybe ask a
universe.
question, they'll figure out who you want to talk to.
God.
Yeah.
I kind of want to, there's two things I want to talk about, but the first is hearing from the owner of One Sleepy Hollow. Kind of threw me for a loop there. So, and I've been up here getting legal input for email and things, but if I understand correctly, so the Sleepy Hollow piece that would serve as an alternative entrance, eliminating the need for this vehicular bridge, is set to be closed, but the only way that it could be used as an entrance is if the land itself is condemned by this city council to remove one of the covenants that restricts it from being an accessible access path to another neighborhood, anything other than a house, if I understand correctly. So it's almost like there's several avenues here. I don't know what the appetite of this council on the whole is, or even the majority is, but I want to say that at the end of the day, I want to see more housing. I don't want to just see it in Haw Creek. I want to see it in every neighborhood because we need it. We need it. And there has not been, in my 5 years on council, or the 5 or plus before that on the Affordable Housing Committee, where I didn't see a neighborhood push back. And those of you who are in this room or have been through a project with me on council know that I tend to meet with you and say, all right, push, pull, push, pull. At the end of the day, I want to get to some housing. What does it look like to make it more amenable, acceptable, neighborhood-oriented, et cetera? And so I'm speaking up because Sleepy Hollow was one of the things that I urged us to do. And so I'm feeling a little bit of weight, a little bit of guilt, and I want to see if there's a way for it to still happen. So I'm kind of nodding to my colleagues here. If there's a way to condemn that, I'm curious what that process looks. Maybe legal can speak to that. And then the other thing I want to point out, there was a young woman spoke pretty thoughtfully about how please don't let Helene scare us into doing nothing. And I understand and relate to that. I also want to say I'm noticing a difference in numbers. These are 100-year flood conversations, but we had a 1,000-year flood. So we don't have new flood maps yet. We won't for some time, if I understand correctly. Could be a year, could be more. So we don't really know. But what I'm seeing from the example I used earlier of sightlines is that we have engineers saying this is a bridge and this bridge is safe. And then we have community members saying, I don't believe this bridge is safe. It looks like a dam to me. And I'm trying to help us get some kind of more education in the room around which of those is more true. Because I don't know if we're talking about a 1,000-year flood, a 100-year flood, but I don't see engineers putting forth a model of a bridge that acts like a dam. I saw it spreading it out in those photos. So perhaps there's more education needed. I think the first question is, what happens to our legal department? Condemnation, what does that look like? It has to come back to council, et cetera. What's that process?
So the question is, what would the exercise of eminent domain, also you've mentioned condemnation, that's sort of the colloquial terminology, but it's eminent domain. The assumption would be that council would approve, which is required, the use of eminent domain to condemn this particular property for the purpose of eliminating restrictions. That is an exercise of eminent domain, which has been recognized around the country as a viable use of that particular local government power. That comes with the requirement the city council would approve it. It would require us to justify a public purpose in doing so. Generally speaking, that usually in cases of road networks requires a public road, so that might have to actually be public as opposed to a private road in that particular area. Again, these are preliminary statements. Yeah. The additional element is that in all cases of eminent domain, it obligates the city to pay what's called just compensation to those property owners that might be affected by it under the statutes that are applicable. So it is a process that would have to come back before council and then have a judicial process to declare it legally sound and determine compensation.
And did I understand from the email that it's not just this one parcel, it's all of the Sleepy Hollow neighborhood members because the covenants apply to all of them?
Potentially. And
so there's not a situation where like the Sleepy Hollow residents could come together and say, hey, we're just done with this covenant. We volunteer. This has to go through a judicial process or a council.
The only opportunity for city council to take unilateral action would be through something like eminent domain, perhaps. A community as a whole has their own bylaws that allows them perhaps to alter those bylaws, but I'm not familiar enough with the bylaws of Sleepy Hollow to say what that process would require.
We're so in the weeds. We're so in the weeds on this one. And it doesn't feel like policy governance when I'm in the weeds like this. So I'm done with my comments. I just generally want to say I do want to see housing here. I suspect that this legal access thing that we were hearing about earlier may come into play and the housing may happen regardless, but kind of at a loss on where we're at on process.
I am a little confused, and I'll state my question and whoever wants to answer, but I was not on the council when the original plan was approved, and I really echo Councilmember Turner's, we need housing, we need it 3 months ago, and we need it in all neighborhoods. And I also really want to listen and to the neighborhood. And I am a little confused about this covenant thing and what a covenant is and who makes a covenant, and if that's a HOA thing, can the HOA reconsider that, especially if our neighbors are saying, hey, let's stick with the original plan. The folks in Sleepy Hollow are saying, yeah, this is just a road and a curve into the neighborhood. And so I think is the calculation that going and taking legal action against the city, why aren't we taking legal action against the covenant on the original plan? And is the calculation that we're going to win better with the city versus the covenant? So, why can't we just go with the original plan?
Is that a Brad question, or do you want to?
I mean,
yeah, Brad, do you feel comfortable answering that question?
Is the calculation they're going to win?
Well, the assumption would be that if we say no tonight, this is what I'm understanding. If we say no to the change, then they're left with the original plan. That original plan may find them unable to use that access and entering into a legal process or perhaps some kind of discussion with DOT to gain a legal access, taking it out of our hands after it's been through our hands.
But to your earlier point, that neighborhood could actually say, you know what, we are amending our bylaws and we are sticking with the original plan that we negotiated.
I don't know, and I mean, they're not here, and I don't know that they would, and we don't know how many of them are, and that's so many what ifs. It's not relevant to tonight. But I understand your point, because I feel like maybe we should have done that, or 6 months ago, or
I'll say with some speculation that voluntarily changing the covenants seems pretty unlikely from the number of community members I've spoken to.
Okay, I was just hearing people saying that they wanted to stick with the original plan, so actually, you don't want to stick with the original plan. So I'm confused at what folks want. You know, if we're saying we want housing, you know, and then we're saying we're just throwing everything in the world at it to keep it from happening, but then we're saying the original plan, I thought the original plan was going through Sleepy Hollow.
Okay, so I see somebody's raising their hand. Well, there are a lot of unknowns. I think the community understands that even if this receives a no vote tonight, that there are other avenues that this applicant may pursue. And I'm assuming that people are making comments when they say vote against this, they understand that there could be some other process to get there that doesn't even involve the council. So, and furthermore, for that matter, the conditional zoning on this property could, if unused, could just expire eventually and revert back to no conditions on this property, and some other purchaser could choose to develop it by right, which would allow them to put 49 homes on the east side of the road.
And then they would lose all those negotiations.
But without the conditions. I mean, there's a lot of, this is a really challenging one because there's not a clear path to bring a complete consensus to some result that obviously works for everybody. So I mean, I think they're voting for this has its pros and cons, and voting against it leaves a lot of unknowns. That also has pros and cons. I've really struggled with this, and I'm a land litigator, so I do get the covenant part and the easement part and all the contingency part. I get all that, which just makes it even more complicated in my head. This morning I was at physical therapy, probably TMI, but from sitting in all these meetings. But my physical therapist is a young guy. He's got a young family. He's over in East Asheville. And, we were talking about this, and he was saying, a lot of my clients don't want this project. He said, but, it really makes me mad because, I'm young and I have a young family and we need housing. And he's got a young staff. He's got young staff and they're young families and this is we just get a chance to, I'm just saying what a conversation I had. I mean, these are tough conversations in the community because I think a lot of people would say, yeah, we need to create housing opportunities for our young people or younger people. I got 3 giant young people myself, my 3 sons, and I hope one day they see fit to move back to Asheville. So we do need to create opportunities for people to be here. And Haw Creek.
Y'all, we spent an hour on public comment.
I'm not saying
want
I'm
to
voting
say
for
our
it, so
thoughts.
everybody calm down. I am just, and this part is the part that's so hard.
Yeah.
Just us yelling at each other. I'm not interested in that. I'm just having a conversation about these challenging decisions. I picked this job, so I'm ready to make a challenging decision. That's okay. And I'm super glad to hear from you all, and I think a lot of people took a lot of time to struggle through this. I know many in your community have spent hours and hours and hours looking at these plans, talking to each other, trying to figure out if there was a way to negotiate a result, trying to figure out what would be best, weighing the pros and cons. So I know that as much time I've spent on it, many of you spent much more time on it. So I very much appreciate that. And I do, I'm just recognizing and painting a picture of the struggle, which I know a lot of you are familiar with. So, at this point, I do feel like there are other options for this applicant I do think there are other options for this property, and I think ultimately it will end up getting developed. It was a very difficult decision the first time around. And so I'm not inclined to support this request for an amendment tonight. I'm feeling a little, I mean, it's a little fatiguing to try to have these projects come back. In the past, we've had projects come back because we've funded affordable housing in them and the pro forma changed and they needed more money, and there were, very serious issues to try to consider in reconsidering a project. But this is a little different for me. So, that's just where I'm at. But I'm not happy about having to make this decision, but I'm willing to do it.
Are you ready for a motion?
Yeah, I'm ready for a motion.
I move to deny.
Oh, did you?
Well, I guess, sure, yeah, I'll just say it quick. I move to deny the conditional zoning amendment request for the property located at 767 New Haw Creek, zone residential expansion conditional zone, and find that the request is not reasonable, not in the public interest, and is inconsistent with the city's comprehensive plan, and that the request relies upon proposed infrastructure that would generate substantial negative impacts to the environment, current infrastructure, and the surrounding community.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. I didn't mean to cut you off. Would you please like them to make any further comments before we vote?
Yeah, I guess I'll just say, I consider myself a housing advocate. And I'm 41. I went to UNC Asheville, and a lot of my peers can't afford to live here anymore. And that's hard. That's hard to experience. And I really feel, I feel deeply when I hear folks bring up that we don't ever get the people in the room who want to live there, the future residents or children. And I feel like when this project came before us in the past, I really went elbow deep into the community conversation and felt like I really went out on a limb as an elected leader and voted for it. And that was very hard. That was hard to have conversation with all y'all in the past where I was supporting something that many people didn't want. This go-round feels different. This go-round feels like it's pushing my public policy discretion beyond community goals to meet this single project's goals. And I'm gonna do a terrible pun, but it feels like a bridge too far. So thanks for giving me a minute. I know I probably should have spoke up earlier, but I just wanted to get that out there. It's hard for me to vote against housing, but tonight I'm not gonna, I will vote with the motion to deny. So thank you for letting me say that.
I would also like to add some context to our conversation around housing, land use, and transit. Ideally, you'd have lots of housing on transit corridors, and you would have the political will to ensure that we're building housing for your incumbent neighbors, because as the author of Homelessness is a Housing Problem noted when he was here, if you build housing but don't build it for your incumbent neighbors, you'll build housing but still have a housing problem. And so as we're having this conversation about the transit study, we've kind of pitted the conversation saying only using our existing transit funds for the bus. Does the community want more frequency, which is proven to increase ridership? That would be a good thing. Or, because you don't get to have both with existing funding, should we have coverage? Should we keep the community neighborhoods connected with transit so people have more transportation options? And we know that housing and transportation together are part of the affordability equation. But what we're being pitted with as a community and very soon as a council in this budget process is to look at getting frequency on the major corridors by reducing coverage in the neighborhoods. At the most extreme, which I don't think we'll do, but at the most extreme, we lose Haw Creek transit service, we lose Kenilworth, we lose Shiloh, we lose the Emma community. There's a lot of workers that got displaced from the core and made the choice to move farther out And so the workers will have two choices, buy a car or leave. So I'm wrestling with the idea that we were originally talking about this being on a transit corridor, and now it might not even be on a transit corridor. But I think there's a lot of opportunity to regain our focus through this transit conversation, is we actually need frequency and coverage. We need to be having a conversation about reducing our costs, fighting together to get transit funding on our ballot so that we can speak with a united voice that transit and housing are part of our affordability. We need to be pushing really hard for the city and the county to work together on that. And so I'm going to hold on to hope that we will keep Haw Creek Transit, we will keep neighborhood transit, and that'll be part of future land use and planning. But I'm going to be maintaining my previous no vote tonight. Thank you.
What do you mean, yes?
Or my
Well,
yes and
yes
the denial.
or no.
I'm not going to be supporting the denial of this. I'm just going to speak up ahead because it's going to go real quick. Because I think we need the housing, and I think it's going to end up happening here. And in an ode to just a nod and a respect for the folks, the stakeholders that can't be in the room, the stakeholders that can't live there if it's not built, et cetera. I was actually going to suggest an alternative motion that now is moot because this one's been made, that suggested we offer up some kind of amendment that says this will be the last resort, that the applicant must go through the attempt to condemn, the attempt to change covenants, et cetera, but it's too far gone. We have a motion on the table to deny. But because of that and because of my desire to see other opportunities, I won't be supporting the denial. I think I'll be the only one though, so don't worry.
Anybody else? Okay, we have a motion to deny the application, so a vote in favor will deny the application. So all those in favor, raise your hand. All those opposed, raise your hand. Okay, so the application amendment has been denied. All right, so, why don't we just take a quick break, because I know, but when you move out, quickly go somewhere to talk so that we can still hear in here, because if you talk loud out there, we can't hear in here. We have a little bit more left on our agenda. Good evening, everyone. Yes.
Thank you for being here. Marla, why are you here? Oh, come say hello to Debra.
Okay, we're back on. Okay, we have a couple of items left here. We have two items under new business. One is a resolution adopting the long-term recovery plan, section 7.2 of the Buncombe County Helene Recovery Plan. And Chris Collins is here to talk to us about it.
Hello, good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Chris Collins, City's Planning and Urban Design Department. I have been before you a few times in a few different formats to take you through the process of developing the long-term recovery plan. Now you'll notice dubbed the Helene Recovery Plan on the greater document, but in order to avoid confusion, we're going to keep calling it this through the presentation. Key takeaways remain that the city has partnered with Buncombe County, all municipalities within the county, and FEMA to develop a consolidated countywide recovery plan. That plan is intended to inform the public and help the city focus its work and prioritize projects. The plan will serve as a guide for the community that can evolve as we move through recovery. Those projects the projects that are contained within have been selected based on city council vision, priorities, goals for recovery, community input, previously adopted planning efforts, and the city's organizational work plan priorities. That plan was released for public comment, the draft, in September, and that's the last time I was speaking with you all on this. Those comments were collected through a consolidated portal run by the Buncombe County on behalf of all the municipalities, and they have been incorporated into the final plan that's in front of you tonight. A few of these slides are kind of refreshers just to make sure everyone's up to speed on where we are. You've seen them before, so we'll go relatively quickly through a couple of them. First of all, talking about what the plan is and what is not. You've heard this before, but it is a collaborative plan that aims to be reflective of the community voice It is tailored to the organizational scope of each government that is involved. It is a list of projects we can reasonably plan to deliver on. There are a lot of things going on out there, as you all know. It is not an overall community plan. It does not detail everything that's happening in recovery or everything that's happening behind the scenes. It doesn't specify exactly where funding is coming from. It doesn't outline steps to obtain funding. It's not an implementation plan. It's not a detailed plan of each project. It's not a guarantee that these projects will come to fruition. And again, it's not a fully inclusive list of projects that are going on. Community engagement and information up to this point was done through the Recovery Priorities Survey, as well as the Envision Buncombe Survey through the county. A lot of CDBG-DR-driven engagement to develop that action plan. And more further engagement was done with the Urban Land Institute panel that came to town to assist. All that engagement came together into the project selection process. We have covered this before, so at the high level, we worked through community input, as was just detailed, filtered through city council vision and priorities, as well as other plans and goals of the city, and evaluated individual project proposals within the city to come up with that original draft project list. So where did that get us? The draft plan that was released contained 114 projects across 7 local governments, and as you see here, that's 31 in Buncombe County, 31 in the city of Asheville, and upwards of a dozen to a few in our other municipalities. It does even include a couple of cross-jurisdictional exploratory projects, and that was one of the things we hoped to find when getting into this, how we can work together. The timeline for this, again, the draft recovery plan was released on September 16th of 2025. That remained open for public comment until October 3rd of 2025. Then we turned around on some quick deadlines with the county and our partners at FEMA to get responses to those comments incorporated by October 27th. And now here we are tonight for consideration of that final plan. So on those comments, what did we hear? So again, public comment was open September 16th through October 3rd. 52 of the 100 total responses were self-identified as City of Asheville residents or stakeholders. We did hear a strong desire for River Arts District inclusion and investment, and of course in opposition to something, a concept of relocation. That was 34 of our 52 comments focused on that one element. Again, a couple of other points that came up, but not frequently, project prioritization and scope questions, questions about development in general, and making sure all the rules are being followed as things develop. Infrastructure suggestions heavily focused on, broadly focused on water, electrical, all our utilities, and a few comments talking about the need to focus resources in South Asheville, working families and emergency support for disabilities. But as most of our comments focused on the River Arts District, I want to go into a little detail about what we heard there. Again, 34 of 52 Asheville comments were focused on the RAD. Comments requested dedicated projects due to the RAD's cultural and economic importance, which we all recognize. Requests for RAD-focused projects. We looked for projects that were really focused on the RAD, where they could really see themselves in this plan and how those projects came together in the district. And there was opposition to the ULI recommendation of relocating the RAD. That was emphasized pretty heavily throughout the comments. There were also suggestions for RAD investment beyond infrastructure projects, economic benefit, and things such as that. So we took these comments back, took them to heart. What we realized is that the RAD is in a lot of these projects. It just wasn't readily apparent or called out in that initial draft. So as a response, we looked at the focus. Revisions were focused on the prevailing comments that we just went over for the RAD. And we made revisions to projects that already impact the RAD heavily to emphasize their role in the recovery. So first of all, that was inclusive of the French Broad Riverfront Parks project. That project is fully an infrastructure project aimed at, of course, rebuilding the park, but also connecting an associated infrastructure that runs throughout the district. So changes were made to make sure that was a little more apparent through that project page. There's also a project in there that is titled the Revitalization of Flooded Commercial Corridors. This is economic investment within the RAD to help aid recovery, and the RAD is a huge portion of that, so the plan was updated to reflect that as well. And then we went in to look at the project that was titled Assess ULI Recommendations, adding a lot of clarity to the fact that that project really was to not initially, but in-depth assess these recommendations, not to enact every one of them. And we did remove some of the references to relocating the RAD because that was not a popular topic in the comments that came back. All that said and done, we shipped up our responses to those comments off to FEMA to have the plan produced, which takes us to the next steps. Each local governing board will be asked to consider endorsement of the Helene Recovery Plan and adoption of the projects for their jurisdiction. Buncombe County is considering adopting the entire plan today at their county commissioner meeting, so it's nice the meeting's lined up. And then, of course, moving forward, city staff and the recovery team will oversee the coordination and implementation of the City of Asheville projects. Takes us back to our key takeaways, and any questions you have, I'm happy to answer.
I have a question. I almost hate to ask it. 100 surveys, 100 respondents, it's not even statistically significant. Are we at all worried about that? I mean, I know across the community there's fatigue. Survey exhaustion is a term that comes to mind. But a recovery plan after our largest natural disaster to date has 100 respondents, 30 of which talked about the River Arts District. It makes me concerned.
Well, Buncombe County helped put together this plan. Did they use any other, I know they're doing a lot of surveying work of the community and community conversation. And we also did a huge survey around our action plan for CDBGDR. I mean, did we consider all these other,
So
but it's like, and I know Commissioner Horton actually brought those
just
same concerns up in the commission meeting.
The commission brought up the same thing about the respondents?
Commissioner Horton did.
Oh.
About lack of public engagement, the responses we got, and then the incorporation of actually those responses into the plan.
And I know that, here's what I'm thinking, because I'm not trying to like blow it up at the end here, but there are some, these are, broad strokes, broad language of things, but is there a way to do supplemental, continual input that might support this stuff further and grow those numbers?
And there will be a lot of additional engagement around all of the projects that are included. Similar to what I shared earlier about the River Arts engagement, that type of engagement will happen throughout the projects that are in here. So there will be future opportunities. And again, these efforts did help inform the projects that were included. So it's not just the survey responses specifically on this, and we did work with the county on that. So there are going to be a lot more opportunities for input on these projects as we move forward.
Yeah, I mean, that helps. I think that does help. I guess I'm just also, like you allied to this massive, wonderful thing for us, right? And some of the key concepts they put in were, I don't know, opposed by a few respondents and removed. And that just, I'm just trying to flush out, are we doing our most encompassing effort here?
let me answer the question that you asked in there about can we continue to look at this. It is meant to be an evolving plan because it is so high level, and there are some projects that are in here that are about assessing concepts and investigating concepts. So by necessity, that plan does have to continually receive attention. And then tying that into what Jamie just told you, every project will have its own communications and engagement plan moving forward. So.
I'll also say that, flipping through some of these, it's codifying a bunch of stuff that we've been saying for a while too. So there's stuff like North Fork alternate route utility protection. Like there is a handful of stuff that I think there's broad consensus on, whether through our lived experience of the storm that the community's like, yes, we need to figure this out for water treatment, or things that have been kind of in motion and now get kind of like double tapped because they have economic recovery potential or because they help with housing. There's a bunch of stuff around the housing that's really like, you guys have a great affordable housing program. Do it faster if you can. So I just want to add some of that of looking through the projects now, and I think we're at 37. It's not a lot of, not all of it's brand new, but your ultimate point of this is definitely not our most highly engaged process, but
It's such a critical time, that's all. Yeah. Maybe the ongoing engagement will help. It worries
I
me.
also wonder if it's possible that folks thought they had already done it because they've done it in a different way, in a different survey. Like they might have been asked some of the same questions, like, oh, I already did this, because it's some of the same stuff.
Maybe there's that. Yeah.
And if I could, excuse me, I think you're right that our community is kind of getting engagement fatigue a little bit. But we leaned on a lot of the other initiatives that were underway. And I think this slide is compelling because if you think about all the engagement and the number of responses and the participation that we got out of these initiatives, we took that input and then brought it into the recovery plan. So it wasn't like we were creating a new plan. It was essentially saying, we hear you. And we're documenting it and we're incorporating it into a long-range recovery plan. And the county actually did take action on their portion tonight.
They did.
Yeah, just
Yeah, I mean,
saw the feed.
And I don't want to stop it. I just wanted to highlight the concern.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes when we do these presentations and include really small, isolated
Numbers.
survey results, when we know we've done surveying around all this, and I'm looking at the project pages for each of these projects, and these are all things we've talked about.
Yes,
I mean,
ma'am.
and we've been talking about. This isn't like reinventing the wheel here. So I think it's, I think there's some new things here. I think there's the very first one we've got on here, which is exciting, is the Ford Street, which is the property next to Debra View, and continuing that. That's really, we've been planning that for a long time.
Yeah.
So that's really exciting. But then I see some new ones here, like what we call Space Upfit Project, which is a very strange name, which I think actually means resilience hubs, essentially, which is, whatever. I guess we can get into what we call things later. But, so that's a newer piece that we've added this last year. But again, I mean, I think we're generally, this is all headed in the right direction. And we have our recovery committees that are going to help us vet all this work. That's right.
First one this week.
Yeah, that's really exciting to bring it to us. And we're getting a lot of money to be able to do this, so it's terrific.
I did
I'll
not.
make a motion.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do need a motion and we don't, just in keeping with our
No public comment.
public comment fatigue, we have no one signed up to comment under this item. So do we have a motion on this, please?
I make a motion to adopt a resolution adopting the long-term recovery plan, section 7.2 of the Unified Buncombe County Helene Recovery Plan, which details the city of Asheville's recovery projects in the plan.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you very much. Okay, we have one other item, and I'll turn it over to the Vice Mayor. We need to select a person for the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Thanks, Mayor. Earlier this afternoon, the council interviewed 5 candidates for the Planning and Zoning Commission, and there was a 6th candidate who was unable to attend, but she did send us emails regarding her qualifications. So initially, there was 1 seat available, and now there are 2. So I'd like to gauge the pulse of council, whether we want to appoint 1 tonight, reopen, and then come back and make a 2nd appointment, or if we'd like to appoint 2 tonight. I'll start off and just say that my preference would be to appoint a seat tonight, to fill the remaining term of, our friend Byron, and then come back and reappoint for the second one. I'm open to hearing from other members that.
For
Maggie.
clarity, for those who might be curious, it is our practice that anyone who has applied in the past, their application will be on file for a year.
Yes.
2 years even, right?
You
One
just
year.
keep them forever, Maggie, right? So Maggie and I had a very long conversation about how to do this. And she offered that we could open the advertising for the position for a couple of weeks, and then at December 9, we can decide whether or not, we'll have our policy meeting ahead of December 9th, so we'll be able to decide then if we want to interview or if we're ready to appoint, or, of course, we need to kind of tell you because you're going to put it on the agenda.
And I might not be here on the 9th.
The appointment, we can re-advertise for 2 weeks, and we can bring it back on December 9 for just an appointment. Or if council decides they want to interview again, we can set up, we can ask council who they want to interview on December 9 and make that appointment on January 13th. It's a whole month.
How about we put it on the agenda for appointment, because we've done that, we do that all the time, and then decide to re-advertise something. So we could put it on the agenda for appointment, but if council feels that we need to go through another round of interviews, we can just push that off to the next meeting.
And is the inclination to wait because we don't feel like we have, like, we want to see more options than who we interviewed today?
No, I think we had great options, but
Yeah, this one
I know I emailed all of y'all about, if one person did leave as a result of a council vote tonight. I know that we had an applicant that actually said they wouldn't serve if that person stayed on. We had another applicant that said they were withdrawing or wasn't going to apply because of that other member. So we have some people out there that may shift their thinking. And then additionally, there was some loss of community relationship in that seat that may be fulfilled by another member. I know I'd volunteered that. So I'm open to it. I think we have great candidates tonight, and I could certainly appoint 2 or 4 of them if we could. But I do think there might be an opportunity for someone else to come along. So I'm open to it, especially if we can do it expeditiously.
And we will let those folks know that we are going to consider them at the next round as well.
Okay.
So this is just not nothing for them.
Okay, so sounds like it's a consensus?
Yeah, I think so. So we'll do one tonight.
So the idea is to vote for one tonight, come back on December 9th to decide whether we'll appoint or open up for more
Yes.
interviews. Okay.
Yes.
And we'll be able to pull from these 2.
Yeah.
Ones that
So
we
these
have.
will still be the option.
We're going to interview for 2 weeks now. We'll start our interviews.
We're going to open the application.
Open the
for-
application.
Okay.
Right.
And I'll just say that there's still a likelihood that I'm not going to be here because of a work conflict on the 9th, so I'll just email you my thoughts, and hopefully it
That
won't
sounds
be a
good to
split vote, and you'll sort it out.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so with that in mind, the names of the 5 people that we interviewed were Michael Speciale, Seth Connolly, Jonathan Anzalito, Lindsay Rule, Randall Barnett, and Julie Dower was unable to attend the interview, but as I said before, she sent us information. So what I'd like to do is just start at one end and go down the other and give me one person. Can we start with you, Kim?
Michael Speciale.
Michael Speciale.
Michael Speciale.
I'm Anzalito.
Rule.
Brule.
Jonathan Anzalito.
Uh-oh.
No. Well, we need 4 votes.
That was only 3.
Well, we need
it-
4 votes. I think we need 4 votes.
So, yep, council, typically what you do is now only vote amongst the top 2 vote getters.
Which were those? They were tied.
Top 2 vote
Anzalito.
getters.
There were-
It was 3-2-2.
Two of them got 2 votes.
If they do that, it'll just be the same
Anyone
vote.
interested in changing to Speciale?
I mean, I feel like some of what you were saying of the representation from some of the relationships lost, he represents, so.
That
So
might
then
be
we can
my
maybe vote
second
on 2
choice
today.
then, next time. I thought Brule was pretty
Yeah,
powerful.
I mean, I would move over to Brule if that helped at all.
Well, that just makes it 3-3.
Yeah, yeah.
But then we're down, yeah. Well, then we're at least at 2 candidates and we can round table again. Round robin, whatever that's called. So now we're at Speciale, is it Speciale?
Yes.
Speciale and Brule.
Okay, we can start with Kim, well, go ahead, Kim.
Michael Speciale?
Michael Speciale.
Michael Speciale.
Brule.
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 Bro.
So, and may I, because there was actually a semi-truck blocking my vehicle in, and that is why I was late getting here. So I missed a Speciale's interview. I'm going to watch it again. But is the support coming from his relationship with Legacy Neighborhoods?
Unions and his other
Yeah, he has,
qualifications.
yeah, he has.
I mean,
Okay.
But he does have a
But
letter
that,
from
okay, because I
Shiloh,
missed it,
yeah.
so I'm just, okay, that's helpful
And
for,
his interview?
I'll watch it too. Okay, thank you. And sorry, I was helpless, couldn't get out of my own driveway. Okay. Okay.
Awesome.
okay, I'll turn it back over to you, Mayor.
Okay, great, thank you. Now, we have reached the final portion of our agenda. Before we begin general public comment, and everyone who's doing general public comment, again, you'll have 3 minutes to speak. Watch the lights on the lectern. Maggie, everybody on council says that they are available at 10 o'clock on January 27th to have our council meeting. So that we, for those who do want to participate in the point in time count, can do so that evening. A daytime council meeting.
Ooh, it's kind of
Let's
like
go.
today.
I can't imagine what it will be like. I have to be really tired by the end of the meeting. Okay.
I can't either.
Oh, does it work for you guys? Just, I see some. Sorry, I saw some chatter among the press. Okay, so our first person signed up to speak tonight is Nina Tovish.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members. When I was a young child, maybe 9 or 10, I learned what happened to people subject to the power of Nazi Germany. I learned about concentration camps. I learned about the abduction, imprisonment, torture, and murder of men, women, and children. I was sleepless at night, pondering what I would do if Nazis made me choose between saving my mother or my father, just because they could. I also remember the murder of Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. and the slaughter of university students in Ohio by the National Guard in our own country. I snuck out of my bed at night to listen to the grown-ups in our living room making plans for the Vietnam War moratorium. All of which is to say, my whole life I've asked myself the question, what would I do if, let's face it, the question is salient now. What will I do? And even more importantly, what will we do? The first and most essential thing we can do is speak up together. We can say no. We can say not here. We can withhold consent. We can refuse to facilitate or cooperate. We can maintain the integrity of our community by refusing to allow our common and public goods to be used for unjust ends. Some scoff and say that passing a resolution is virtue signaling. Darn right it is. It's a way of pointing to what is just and right, which I dearly hope are still virtues in our community. Even though a resolution may not have the force of law, that does not render it meaningless. It is a statement of community values and intentions. It preemptively declares that we stand in support of the most vulnerable among us. It signals our willingness to push back against terror, cruelty, racism, and injustice. Others say it's a mistake to speak out before ICE and Border Patrol show up, that it will just make them come in greater numbers with greater force. If we're quiet, maybe they'll leave us alone. I'd like to see the list of communities that have escaped authoritarianism by being quiet. History shows us that, in fact, silence is complicity and provides no protection. We deserve bravery and resolve from our local government to defend our residents and uphold our community values. Let's speak up. Let's set the example.
Thank you.
Missed my last two great sentences.
Hannah, are we? No? Okay. Claire Hanrahan?
Good, thank you.
I'm Claire Hanrahan. I've lived in Asheville over 30 years. I was 77 on your day, November 15th, so it's my day too. I was walking here to the meeting tonight, seems like hours ago, so I'm a little hoarse. But I passed many brown-skinned laborers winding up their workday, mopping floors in my senior housing, patching a leaky ceiling in the lobby, constructing a new box-like condo across the street, starting price in the 700,000s, renovating windows in an historic building beside our community gardens, repairing the dome of the basilica, washing dishes in one restaurant, and cooking at the grill in another. I want to ask you, will these immigrant workers be safe if ICE is allowed to run amok in our city? Documented or not, they have due process rights. Masked ICE agents with undeniable brutality, acting with alarming impunity, have repeatedly violated the due process guarantee in the U.S. Constitution and its fundamental guarantee that all levels of government must operate within the law and provide fair procedures before acting against individuals. This guarantee applies to all residents of the U.S., all residents. Council, you must take a stand against this abuse of power. I urge you to support the resolution that would block use of city property for civil immigration enforcement. And while it is grand to take a stand, this resolution is not grandstanding. This resolution is imperative. Thank you.
Thank you. Joanna Hewlett?
Good evening, Council. My name is Joanna Hewlett, and I am the mother of 2 young children. I want to acknowledge the hour. I know it's late, we've been here a long time, so if a sleep-deprived mom is standing here at this podium at almost bedtime for my kids, it's because what is happening in our region demands your attention, your courage, and your action right now. I chose Asheville because I wanted my children to grow up in a community built on safety, trust, and basic human decency. But ICE and CBP operations in Charlotte and across North Carolina threaten that foundation for every family, not only immigrant families, but all of us. Let's be direct. These operations are not about community safety. They are not about dangerous individuals. They are not about fear or power or intimidation, and everyone in this room knows that. After Helene, our immigrant neighbors, the same people who showed up to rebuild, who filled workforce gaps, who kept local businesses alive, cannot withstand another setback. If they're afraid to go to work or forced to close their businesses to keep their families safe from unlawful raids, our entire community feels the impact. We cannot ask them to survive a natural disaster and a man-made disaster layered on top of it. What we are witnessing is morally intolerable. No parent should fear calling 911. No child should lie awake wondering if their family will be intact tomorrow. When community trust collapses, everything collapses, and that responsibility lands solely on local leadership. That is why I am asking and expecting the remaining council members to sponsor the resolution of preventing the use of city property for civil immigration enforcement activities. Not later, not after another crisis, now. Sponsoring this is the bare minimum. It says our parks, our lots, our buildings will not be used as a staging ground for trauma. It says we understand that leadership is not neutrality, leadership is protection. As a Unitarian Universalist, I believe in the inherent worth and dignity of every human being. And in a region shaped by Christian teachings, I want to say this clearly and respectfully. Jesus was an immigrant. And what you do to the least of these, you do to him. Council, history is watching. Our community is watching. Our children are watching. This is your moment to choose courage over caution, humanity over neutrality, and to sponsor and support the resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Marcia Castillo?
Hi, my name is Marcia Castillo. I'm a Mexican-American resident here of Asheville, and I am here to talk to you about something that affects me personally. It affects my friends, my family, my coworkers, my caring neighbors. I'm sorry if my voice shakes or if I cry. I am not a public speaker, but people are afraid to say anything about this at all for fear of exposure and retribution by the federal government. They're afraid to attend a peaceful protest, afraid to go to the grocery store, afraid to go to work, afraid to exist in a brown body, afraid to speak with an accent, much less in any language other than English. So I am here to reiterate a little bit of what you've already heard and what you already know. The Fourth Amendment protects persons, not just citizens, against arbitrary searches and arrests, and serves as the basis of search warrants with a probable cause of crime. Immigration status, as we know, is a civil matter, not a criminal one. ICE and Border Patrol agents' presence in our city does nothing to protect the public, and everything to terrorize it into submission. I urge you to not submit. The way in which ICE and CBP have chosen to conduct themselves by hiding their identities, forcing themselves onto public and private spaces, and indeed even intimate spaces, by forcibly assaulting persons, human beings that are included in the protection of the Constitution, is wholly unconstitutional. What we are asking the city leadership to do is to clearly define the law and uphold it. By adopting the resolution proposed by Kim Roney, it will help to direct the city staff to uphold the Fourth Amendment at their workplace, and then embolden private residents and business owners to do the same. It sends a clear message that unlawful actions by ICE will not be tolerated in our vibrant and diverse city, and will build trust with vulnerable members of our community. I want to be very clear about the impact that these traumatic events are having on our neighbors. Children are afraid that their families may not come home. Families are violently being torn apart. Once detained, they are facing untold and unknowable abuses because access to ICE detention centers is also being restricted by journalists and elected officials. The effects of these abuses will be felt for generations to come. One of the most healing things post-Helene was seeing our communities come together to lift and protect each other, feed and house each other. The tragedy of Helene didn't define us. Much like the power that you hold, it reveals who you are. It's revealed who we are. Adopting this resolution would be consistent with that revelation. Thank you.
Thank you. David Moritz.
Hi. I just want to say I'm a little disappointed at the process that was run on Jared Wheatley. Before I do that, I just want to thank Councilperson Kim Roney and Councilperson Antoinette Mosley for not succumbing to pressure from staff. My view is that these boards that we put in place are meant to hold staff accountable, and I think this sets a precedent when it seems like staff is the one who's been pushing for this removal. Now, I came across the memo that was distributed internally. My issue with the process is the memo doesn't provide any specific evidence. It does have some hearsay. Now, I'm not privy to conversations that happened. I don't participate in the boards. I don't have influence on Jared and what he does. But when I reviewed it very carefully and I clicked on all the links that staff spent a lot of time putting together, and I hope that you also clicked on those links. And if that's the best evidence that staff could come up with, it's very disappointing because it shows, I mean, I guess you guys have a right to do whatever you want, but it really shows a lack of due process in his removal. I suggest, as an instance, you click on the one from August 7th. Clearly it shows Jared, first of all, the tone of all the videos is completely normal. Staff seems to indicate there's some hostility, which is not in the videos. In one video, staff is trying to get votes for the $80 million bond, and Jared rightfully asks, he's uncomfortable voting for that because city is 10 years behind on some zoning changes they meant to do, and also the sidewalks at Haw Creek were never delivered from the last bond. That's a very reasonable comment to make. And the staff was actually quite pushed back hard, but then admitted, yes, it's very hard to get things done, which Jared understands as a contractor. Yeah, it's hard to get things done, and we're gonna try to work to do better. And to me, that's what I want a council member to do, is to hold staff accountable. So maybe there's other evidence that's not in the memo, but if city council is making the determination based on the memo I saw, it really didn't provide the evidence that would warrant. And I encourage you to watch those videos because I watched every single one of them. And it was a bit disappointing, the evidence, because I was actually at first afraid to look at the videos. I thought there'd be some damaging video, but there wasn't. So I think that if that kind of thing needs to happen, there needs to be better evidence in the future when making a decision and not just taking staff's word for it, because they shouldn't be the ones overseeing the board. It should be the other way around. Thank you.
Thank you. Clara Derby.
Good evening, Council. My name is Clara Derby. I'm a resident of Asheville, and I'm an attorney, but I'm here speaking today as a resident and a neighbor. I'm here today to implore the Council to vote in favor of the resolution prohibiting ICE agents from using public property for their operations. I've watched with horror as masked men violently arrest people in LA, Chicago, Minneapolis, and now Charlotte. I fear for my neighbors here in Asheville that we will be targeted next. The arrests are but the beginning of the horror, as people are being held without access to their attorneys, ability to contact their families, and often without basic human dignities. And that is before they are sent to countries where they face extreme violence and death. People are getting lost, or better yet, disappeared into the system. Many of those detained at Alligator Alcatraz are still missing. This is not law enforcement. This is race-based, state-funded persecution. The cities that have already withstood these horrific operations have given us a blueprint for how we as a community and you as our elected leaders can defend ourselves. We have the luxury to be proactive in our defense. This resolution is the first step. I'm disappointed that you are not taking that step tonight. I practice administrative law and know better than most how arbitrary bureaucratic processes can delay vital action. I request an explanation for why the resolution was not brought tonight and clarity on what the city plans to do to defend our residents against authoritarianism. The time is now. We cannot look back and wish that we had done more sooner.
Thank you. Folks, that concludes our public comment for this evening. Debra, that concludes your very last meeting.
Group hug? Just kidding. That's torture.
And actually, Maggie was just kidding. So for 2 hours, we're going to have a party for you. No, I'm kidding.
So
We're just 2 hours early.
our next meeting will be on December 9th, and it's our only meeting in December. So see you all back then.